And chat. How's it going, guys? Welcome to the Path of Exile Sentinel League livestream reveal. Today we're going to be watching the livestream reveal of both the new Sentinel League and the new endgame expansion that they've teased, which apparently about 40% of the stream is going to be devoted to, so that'll be interesting. For those of you not in the know, Path of Exile is, in my opinion, the greatest action RPG ever made, in the isometric Diablo style. Endlessly customizable, tons of shit to do, great gameplay, very addictive, free to play without any pay to win beyond storage space. Okay, no, I'm not muted. Good. Phew. I highly, highly recommend it. So today's the reveal live stream. Let's go over what we know already. We've seen a teaser trailer that showed some kind of robotic floating thing firing beams at various bosses. We only got screenshots of it, but that was something. We've also seen... Excuse me. In an announcement here, hang on. We've seen this, which is a crafting bench that does not yet exist in the game, which has led to some speculation about it being something that you build yourself. Not to mention, the background of the countdown is a circuit board, which is very interesting to me. Can you zoom in on that? There you go. So yeah, there's been some speculation that it's a build your own companion mechanic. Which would be very interesting. And I'm a little mixed on. I want it, obviously. I want there to be companion characters you can recruit. But considering Grinding Your Game's track record with excellent writing and characterization and voice work, I would want them to be actual characters that you choose between. Not some robot that you assemble. Give me a recruitable character with their own skill tree. GGG. Do it. I would love that immensely. But for now, I guess testing the water with... What the heck? Oh, it's showing highlights from previous reveals.
Oh my god!
Yeah, the Atlas passive tree reveal was insane.
Whoa! What? An Atlas passive tree? What?
How's that volume compared to me, by the way?
Whoa!
I'll turn it down a little.
Holy shit! Wait, what is that? Oh my god!
God, the reveal of the Atlas passive tree was incredible. I hope the Atlas passive tree survived the patch. Bex has gone on record as saying there's not going to be a balance manifesto, so presumably no huge nerfs.
What?
New items.
And
give me the juice. Atlas wide passive tree.
there we go. So presumably no huge nerfs.
Atlas passive tree fucking huge. You see that?
What the fuck is this? Oh shit. An Atlas wide. What the fuck is this?
Yeah, I watched a compilation video of Atlas Passive Tree reactions, and it was delightful.
Yo! What the fuck? Yo, chill!
The Atlas Passive Tree is the best thing to happen to this game in, like, in almost its entire life, I would say.
Influences. Oh my god, that Atlas passive tree is buggies!
Wait, what? Dude, that looks so much better! Like what I wanted.
So hopefully they recognize that and don't nerf it too much, and instead buff the bad stuff.
Whoa! What? That's a big tree, dude.
Oh,
That's a big
4 minutes,
scale,
I'm
dude.
so excited.
New items? Oh my god. The Atlas facets. Oh my god.
What?
You know what?
Yeah.
They're playing this video of people reacting to the Atlas tree right before the stream. I'm betting this is a sign that they aren't going to horribly gut it. And they're... Because they wouldn't be that dumb, right? They wouldn't play this and then announce shit tons of nerfs to it.
What the fuck?
Because that would be horrible PR.
Valuable new items. Atlas wide passive tree.
New influence mod.
Rearrangement and adding nodes would be good.
What?
Like, I can absolutely see them rearranging the Atlas passive tree the same way they do the Atlas every league. To shake things up, and I wouldn't object to that at all.
Oh shit, that's huge.
What? What? What the f is that?
What the fuck? What the fuck?
God, and the way you engage with the Eldritch Horrors is so much better than almost any other endgame boss we've had. You can directly farm them. You can make concrete progress to them every map.
Hey. Wow.
Valuable new items. So we fracture outwards. An Atlas wide. What? What do you mean an Atlas wide passive tree? What the fuck? Yo.
Fucking same, dude.
What the fuck? Oh.
Ups and downs, Blink. Thanks for asking. Still dealing with anxiety, but trying to work through it. Accidentally wrecked the dining room ceiling downstairs, so I'm paying a little extra. Well, I'm paying $100 extra in rent per month for the rest of the year.
Passive trees and hello to a single gigantic Atlas passive tree.
So that's been
Good old
stressful.
Path of Exile. This new tree has over 600 passives available to choose.
Oh, it's time. Here we go. Good old Path of Exile.
Hi, I'm Chris Wilson from Grinding Gear Games. Thanks
Hi,
for
Chris
joining us
Wilson from
today
Grinding
as we
Gear
reveal
Games.
Path of Exile's next expansion, Sentinel, which launches on PC and Mac on May 13th, and on Xbox and PlayStation on May 18th. Twitch drops are enabled for today's live stream, so make sure you follow the instructions below to link your account and earn your Rapture wings. In February, we launched Siege of the Atlas, an expansion that drastically changed Path of Exile's mapping endgame. It removed Atlas regions
For the
and
better.
Watchstones and introduced the gigantic Atlas-wide
Oh,
passive
God, I'm
tree
so
and
glad
4 new
Watchstones are
pinnacle
gone.
bosses to challenge. One other very
Well, they're not
important
gone,
aspect
but
of the
I'm
new endgame is its
so glad the
modularity.
Conqueror system
We
is
designed it in
gone.
a way where it's easy to expand with more content, and that's exactly what we're going to do. Alongside the Sentinel Challenge League, this expansion doubles down on the best parts of Siege of the Atlas to give you ultimate control over your endgame experience.
Ooh.
Here's what you can expect from today's live stream. We'll start with a trailer for the Sentinel expansion, and then we'll go through its content and features in detail, starting with how the new Sentinel Challenge League lets you control your level of risk and reward. We'll then move on to the improvements we have made to Path of Exile's endgame. We'll discuss modifications to the Atlas-wide passive tree, the introduction of 20 Atlas Keystone passives, new variations
Atlas
of pinnacle
Keystone
boss fights,
passives?
and powerful unique items designed by the winners of the
Okay.
Siege of the Atlas boss kill event. Following that, we'll discuss the type of balance changes we're making, or more interestingly, not making in this expansion. We'll then cover
Ooh,
what we're doing
not
with magic
making.
and rare monster modifiers, various quality of life improvements, and the full release of controller support for PC players. After showing you our latest supporter packs,
They
I'll
realized
head into
they did
a
it
live
right.
Q&A with community streamer Ziggy D, where we'll answer your questions. Once that finishes, we'll post the expansion's full patch notes.
Oh, this is
There's a lot to
promising.
cover, so
Oh,
let's
patch
roll the
notes
trailer for
today.
Sentinel.
We'll check out the patch notes after this stream, too. Here we go.
In the wake of your power, something has arisen. Dark Sentinels, hungry for a share.
Hungry for a share, huh? Oh, it is a follower.
Constructs can be harnessed. Take them, bind them to your will.
Oh, it is a follower. Oh, it's craftable?
Test and tinker. Combine
It's got a skill tree.
figure. And together, you will find your fortune.
Oh, fuck, yes.
Some
Oh,
Sentinels
fuck,
are
yes.
powerful. Others are dangerous. But in a
Okay, so the
world
Sentinels
with
to buff your
shifting
enemies.
stars,
20 Atlas
monstrous
Keystones.
threats, and valuable
Uber
treasures,
pinnacle bosses.
You
New
will
endgame
need
uniques.
them. The Sentinels await your
Was that an Uber Cirrus? Was that an Uber Cirrus? Oh shit. Oh no.
I'm sure you have a lot of questions, so let's get started with a full explanation of the upcoming Sentinel Challenge League. Sentinels are ancient constructs that have been unearthed across Rayclast. In this league, you will collect these Sentinels and attempt to harness their great power. But this symbiosis is not without risks. Once deployed, a Sentinel follows you, watching and waiting for you to enter combat. As you encounter enemies, the Sentinel will fire a beam that doesn't damage the enemy, but rather empowers them. This not only amplifies the
Ooh.
difficulty of a foe, but also the rewards that it yields. There are 3 classes of Sentinels that you will find as you
Oh,
kill
it's
monsters in this
it's
league.
not a helper then.
Stalker Sentinels will follow you for around 30 seconds, empowering dozens of monsters before they dissipate. This is like a build-your-own breach or delirium effect. because you control what monsters you're fighting when you deploy the Sentinel, and through various means that we'll describe shortly, you're also in control of how much the monsters are empowered. In contrast to Stalker Sentinels, Pandemonium Sentinels are designed for mass area of effect, and typically only fire one shot. But this shot really counts, chaining between monsters to affect an entire screen full of foes at once. This class of Sentinel can be very dangerous because it empowers so many enemies at one time. The final class, Apex Sentinels, can only empower rare or unique enemies. They fire fewer shots.
Oh, they give it
but have a
reward
much larger
types.
impact on difficulty and reward. You start
Interesting.
with a single slot to equip a Stalker Sentinel, but as you play through the league, you can eventually unlock 2 more Sentinel slots so that you can have 1 Sentinel of each class equipped at a time. Each class of Sentinel can be deployed only once per area that you play. You'll quickly develop various strategies for when each class of Sentinel is best used. For example, saving your Pandemonium Sentinel for when you're surrounded by monsters, or using your Apex Sentinel on the map boss or league content that spawns several rare monsters.
Oh yeah, using it on the
With a full loadout of
Pinnacle
Sentinels
Trio.
equipped,
God.
in every map you'll get to empower bosses of your choice, juice up an entire screen at once with a button press, and choose the part of the map where it's best to empower a series of dozens of monsters. Sentinels cannot be damaged by monsters in combat, but do gradually deplete their internal power supply each time you use them. They can be found as you play and are incompatible with traditional Rayclastian crafting techniques. However, new Sentinels
not
with different
craftable.
properties
So
can
they're
be
like leak
assembled from the
stones.
depleted husks of others that you have used until their internal power supplies ran out.
Oh,
We'll explain that crafting process in more
interesting.
detail
They
later
do
on.
get used up.
You can find magic Sentinels that have mods on them. These mods can augment the base properties of a Sentinel, extending its duration, making it empower monsters faster, increasing the number it can empower, or even the degree to which the monsters are empowered, affecting both their difficulty and rewards. Some mods will add specific drops, such as currency items, essences, or unique items to monsters empowered by
Oh,
the
that's
Sentinel,
cool.
but at the cost of increasing how difficult the monster is to defeat. You can also occasionally find rare Sentinels that have more than 2 mods on them. These are generally quite a lot more powerful than normal or magic Sentinels if you find the right combination of mods. The Sentinels
Character
you find
gains
as you
tailwind.
explore Rayclass will become more powerful.
Have a currency
Some
reward,
particularly
chance for
powerful ones
rewards
with
to be
special properties
doubled.
can only come from the process of
Aggro
assembling
radius.
new Sentinels from deployed
There's a hell of a
models.
line.
While the Sentinels you find generally get better and better as you play through the league, you can also upgrade the behavior and properties of Sentinels through your Sentinel Controller. The Sentinel
Interesting.
Controller is like a runic circuit board. It's what powers your Sentinels and allows you to customize them. There are specific nodes for each of the 3 types of Sentinel, so you can customize the properties and behavior of all of them, or potentially focus on your favorite base types. As you play through the league and kill more and more enemies affected by your Sentinels, your controller will gain power. You start with 4 units, which is enough to power your first Sentinel slot and your first runic node. By the end game, you are able to work up to 30 power units, which is enough for almost half of the controller to be powered at once. So how
Cool.
do you
Lots of
choose which
choice
runic
there.
nodes to power? You do this by connecting them together with filaments. Power flows from the top of the circuit through the filaments until it is all in use by the nodes you have connected. You can set up filaments in advance and they'll automatically be used as more power becomes available.
Oh, they're testing an automatically
Moving filaments around
proceeding
has no
skill
cost. It's
tree.
basically like a planning tool that gradually gets activated as you gain more power throughout the league. So you're not
They're
locked into a
testing an
specific
auto-planned
plan, you
skill
can restart
tree.
for free at any time. Some powerful runic nodes require 2 filaments and hence allocate more of your power when activated. Additional Sentinel slots for other types like Pandemonium and Apex Sentinels, for example, require 3 filaments and hence 3 power units each. While it's almost always best to have all 3 slots powered so you can use all 3 Sentinels per area, there are niche strategies where you want to unpower specific Sentinel slots in order to have more power for additional runic nodes, also that you can fully specialize in just 1 or 2 Sentinel types. Just to reiterate, you can change your allocation as much as you like, so feel free to experiment.
Okay,
As
no
powerful
respect
runic
points
nodes allow
needed.
Pandemonium Sentinels to be used an additional time each area. While this is basically pure upside, you should definitely plan around the fact that you'll be running their charge down pretty quickly if you use this node. This runic node prevents your Stalker Sentinels from empowering normal rarity enemies. While this seems very powerful at first because you'll just be empowering magic, rare, or unique enemies that benefit greatly from the boost to item drops, you should be aware that unless you have a large source of special enemies, You'll be fighting against the flight duration of your Sentinels and will probably want to build around increasing their duration. While the Sentinel Controller lets you specialize how the different classes of Sentinels behave, it's generally not necessary to have to modify it for each new Sentinel that you equip. The runic nodes you have chosen represent your overall strategy for each class of Sentinel and rarely need to be tweaked if you swap one Sentinel for another. As you use Sentinels in combat across a number of maps, they eventually
This is
run
pretty
out of charge
cool.
and will become depleted, but they don't need to be thrown away when this occurs. You can find power
Okay,
cores that
tell
let
me
you
more.
assemble a new Sentinel with a full charge. This process disassembles two existing Sentinels,
Fusing
and
their
creates a hybrid of the
properties.
two, with their properties combined together. Right-clicking a power core opens up an assembly screen. If you insert two Sentinels and click the Assemble button, a new, fully charged one will be created. This process is a complex and unpredictable one.
Oh,
that can
it didn't
either
have all
inherit
the
properties
mods.
from the input Sentinels or potentially produce new ones that weren't based on either of them. For example, the base type of the Sentinel could either be the left input Sentinel, the right input Sentinel, or an entirely new one that can't spawn naturally and can only come from this process. The same applies to its modifiers. You generally get a mix of modifiers from the two input Sentinels, but sometimes they have their tiers upgraded or entirely new mods added, occasionally including ones that are exclusive to the assembly process. The end result is that you're
Okay,
usually
so you gotta
getting
do it to get
Sentinels that are
certain mods.
similar in function to the depleted ones you have combined, but occasionally mutate in new ways, producing results that unlock more power and possibilities. The best Sentinels in the game will come from lucky combinations of depleted Sentinels that have just the right mods. It's also possible to assemble two Sentinels directly into one of the many valuable unique Sentinels.
Ooh. Destroy or empowering target enemy, map quality effects rewards,
Specialized
powered
power
monsters
cores exist,
drop
which
currency
influence the
shards.
assembly process to greatly increase the chances of various interesting outcomes occurring. They don't guarantee anything, but are absolutely worth considering if you're trying to hit unlikely assembly results. You may want to accumulate a small collection of depleted Sentinels so that you have options to assemble together. That's where the Sentinel Locker comes in. It's a free object that you can place in your hideout.
They
that
gave us a
allows you to
locker,
store
cool.
stacks of each of the Sentinel currency items, as well as a tab full of each of the 3 categories of Sentinel. You can also store Sentinels in regular stash tabs, and they can be freely traded with other players. The Sentinel Locker's affinity for Sentinels will also work with regular stash tabs while this league is active. As I hinted at before, you can find or create unique Sentinels. These have powerful static properties.
Okay, if this
but
comes
because they
core, it'll
cannot be
probably
combined with other
show up in
Sentinels,
Act
there's no way to
6.
recharge them once they become depleted. They are essentially limited use items with powerful effects. Let's look at a few examples. First off, we have the Basilisk. This is a Pandemonium Sentinel that augments its wide area of effect blast with a petrification effect. Any monsters caught in the blast are turned to stone. Rather than being primarily useful for raising the risk and reward of combat like other Sentinels, this one is incredibly useful as an emergency button in combat. By activating the Basilisk, you can freeze
Interesting.
most of the monsters around you in place, letting you take control of dangerous situations.
That's going to be
This
popular.
unique Sentinel, the Hollow-Eyed Skull, is basically a headhunter in Sentinel form.
Oh shit,
There are also a set
really?
of unique Sentinels that are designed to empower specific named Atlas map bosses. If you activate one of these Sentinels while fighting that boss, it empowers the boss into an extremely dangerous version.
Can
that is
only
very,
empower
very
certain
rewarding if you can
bosses,
defeat it.
huh?
The highly empowered boss fight is further scaled by whatever mods are on the map that contain it, so you'll want to be pretty careful with what mods you choose to use. On the other hand, its rewards are scaled by reward bonuses on that map, so if you're able to defeat one of these bosses in a juiced map, you will certainly be greatly rewarded. These highly empowered map bosses are the best source of recombinators, a new type of endgame currency item that can be found in the Sentinel League. Recombinators allow you to apply
Oh,
the Sentinel
the
assembly process to
combination
pieces
for
of
regular
equipment with
gear
the same item class,
too.
combining them together in unpredictable ways. This process can also rarely imbue your items with exclusive modifiers that don't normally spawn on that type of item. While the recombination process involves significant risks, you could combine the best parts of 2 rare items together, maybe getting a lucky exclusive mod spawn, and end up with one of the best weapons, armor pieces,
Yeah, they're
or
Awakener
jewelry of
orbs.
Exile.
Without influencing.
Sentinels can be deployed while engaging in other League content, so you can juice the risk and reward to quite crazy levels. For example, you could enter a Mirror of Delirium, trigger a breach, and deploy your Sentinel at the same time, causing the monsters to have 3 significant modifiers to both their difficulty and rewards. There are only a few specific areas that Sentinels can't be deployed in, mostly for technical reasons, and those are unique maps, pinnacle Atlas bosses, and the Simulacrum. So that's Sentinel in a nutshell. It's a combat league that gives you heaps of control over the exact risk and reward you encounter. It's
That's exciting.
Enhancing league mechanics.
That's
going to
be fun.
Beyond any kind of reasonable difficulty. Lets you play with temporary headhunters, and might even let a few players assemble some pretty insane rare items if they're lucky. We're very much looking forward to seeing your stories after you've had a chance to play with it next week. In addition to the Sentinel Challenge,
here we go.
this expansion
Atlas endgame
further
improvements.
on the new endgame introduced in Siege of the Atlas, its Atlas-wide passive tree and pinnacle boss fights. The new endgame was designed to give you ultimate control over what kind of content you want to play and how difficult and rewarding you want it to be. With the Sentinel expansion, we are doubling down on what makes this new endgame the best one that Path of Exile has ever
Doubling
had.
down, I like it. I like it.
This expansion introduces 20 powerful Keystone passives to the Atlas tree. As you know from the regular passive skill tree, Keystone passives are usually dramatic and build-changing, with both upsides and potential downsides. Each Keystone can completely change the way you play Path of Exile's endgame, and we have designed Keystone passives for many different playstyles and situations. The second big change is that we have introduced these clusters of passives that grant you even more control over what endgame content you encounter. As you know, you can encounter many different types of past league content randomly within maps. These new passives allow you to prevent content you don't enjoy
so it lets you
appearing
rule
randomly,
out
while
content
simultaneously
and
causing
ups the
other
chance of
content to spawn at a
everything
higher
else.
rate. Aside from the
That'll
obvious
juice
convenience
up
of
maps a
only
lot.
encountering the
That'll make
past league
things
mechanics
really
that you
common.
choose, the system is great for target farming specific content that you have juiced on your Atlas tree. Third,
Yeah, that's a
we have
cool
created
change.
Incredibly difficult and rewarding Uber versions of 7 pinnacle boss fights, which can be accessed via 6 new
7
Keystone
of them.
passives. These fights are designed to challenge the absolute best Path of Exile players, and suffice to say, they are brutally difficult. Let's take a look at some of the new Keystones
Fighting
and
Cirrus
boss fights.
around a storm. Fighting Cirrus while
Singular
multiple
focus
storms
keystone makes it
spawn.
significantly more likely that your favored maps will drop. If a map drops that is not one of your favored maps, it will be converted into a random currency item. This means that you'll exclusively see your favored maps, and outside of that, more currency. This is the realization of the "I only want to play one map" dream that some players have. It also helps players who are over-sustaining maps and would rather just get extra.
I'm never going to
currency
take that, but
the stream of consciousness
I'm never gonna
keystone
take that,
prevents you from
but
modifying your maps with fragments or scarabs. That means that when extra content is being rolled for your maps, each of the base chances is 50% higher. This
that's
is really useful
cool.
for players who
Probably
don't
not
have
going to
to
use it
think
because
about
I like
juicing their maps
scarabs,
and would
but
instead prefer to get a constant moderate bonus instead. The following 2 keystones are for very advanced players who have completed their Atlas trees and want to get a very specific outcome with all of their skill points. The Wandering Path keystone increases the effect of small passives on your Atlas skill tree and disables all notable passives. The Grand Design
Interesting.
keystone increases the monster pack size in each of your maps by an amount proportional to the number of notable passives you have allocated. However, the trade-off is that small passives have no effect.
interesting. That's probably going to be high tier.
These 2 keystones are very good for specializing into maximizing pack size and quantity at the expense of specific league content, which is great for general Magic Find builds or divination card farmers. The Twist of Fate keystone changes the behavior of corrupted rare maps in unpredictable ways. Upon entering a map, you may be sent to an alternative map of the same tier with randomized modifiers. All of the master missions, scarabs, and Kirit crafts applied to the map will also be randomized. This process will not pick an outcome that was already on the map, so it always shifts it to a new property that you didn't have before. This means that you can play all of the scarabs, master missions, and maps that you enjoy, and any leftover ones can be randomized to new outcomes, which are guaranteed to not be the ones you started with. This may
That
have
lets
some
you get rid of your
interesting
torment
consequences
scarabs.
as well, with players feeding bad scarabs or maps into the Twist of Fate lottery.
That's cool.
The Wellspring of Creation and Dance of Destruction keystones change the ratios of monster life and damage in maps on the Atlas so that they are more dangerous and less tanky, or vice versa. These 2 keystones are designed to be remedial, allowing players with an abundance of offense or defense to normalize themselves so that they can handle the content better. If you find
That's
yourself in a
cool.
situation where you're waiting for a weapon upgrade or can't fix your resistances, then you could allocate one of these keystones to temporarily make things easier, before unallocating it later when your build is complete.
Man,
6
these
new
are some
Keystones
cool
create
ideas.
Uber versions of Path of Exile's pinnacle boss fights. Benarius, Cyrus, the Maven, the Searing Exarch, the Eater of Worlds, and the Shaper and Uber Elder, who I guess is now called the Uber Elder? Allocating one of these Keystones on your Atlas passive tree ramps up the corresponding boss fights so that it is extremely difficult. Like, really hard. Harder than saying goodbye to Zana hard. Only allocate these Keystones if your character is extremely powerful and you know you can handle the challenge. In general, the encounter's rules are modified to be far more punitive and difficult. In return, though, you
Holy
can earn some
shit,
very
look at all
enticing
that
rewards.
multiple projectiles.
Each of the Uber fights has an additional high chance reward and a chance of getting a very, very rare chase reward. For example, the Uber Maven guarantees an elevated sextant if you're able to complete the encounter. Very rarely, though, you may be able to earn an awakened exceptional support gem as well, such as Empower, Enlighten, or Enhance.
Oh, those are new.
These Keystones unlock crazy battles that will challenge our most aspiring players who are deep in Path of Exile's endgame. They add a new level of difficulty for those who want to push their builds even farther than they ever have before. The Keystones we have shown you so far are designed around many different types of endgame players. Some glass cannon players struggle with defenses but have no problem with offense. Some players want to just play one map. Some players want the difficulty to be ramped up and to receive rewards commensurate with this added challenge. The Keystones also
like
let you
these
identify a specific
changes.
reward, type of content, or playstyle and know exactly how you can get the most out of it. There are a number of other new Keystones that we'll reveal before release. Like the ones we have shown you today, these Keystones require you to consider your endgame plan in an entirely new light. We're very interested to see what strategies you will use to try to conquer the
Much
new
more
Uber
interesting
pinnacle
than
bosses.
just having Keystones for, like, better blight
Before
or
we
whatever.
get into the new unique items, there
That's
are a few
interesting.
other endgame Atlas changes that we should cover. We are removing Vinctar's Square and Doyani's Machinarium from the Atlas of Worlds because they are not natural map drops. You can still get and play these maps, of course, but they aren't counted for your overall Atlas completion anymore. Their Atlas passive points have been
And
moved
that
to rewards for defeating
counters the
Tanga and
vault
Black
pass
Star.
affecting the economy.
We have rebalanced influence altars and maps. They now feel a lot different than they did in the form they were introduced in Siege of the Atlas. Their downsides now feel more impactful, and they have more diversity of rewards, including new rewards. The intention is to fulfill the original design
Gift card
goal of
drop
having an
chance.
ultimatum-like choice about whether you want to accept additional challenge for additional reward. We've added better Atlas tree support for them, including 2 Keystones that can affect them.
Ooh, Keystones
We've
about
also
them.
rebalanced the drop weightings of the new Pinnacle Atlas bosses, changing the relative drop weightings of their unique rewards and making them more likely to drop Eldritch currency. Currently, in Siege of the Atlas, Elder and Shaper Scarabs are basically worthless because their influence is worse than the free influence you can get from the Eater of Worlds and the Searing Exarch. In Sentinel, you can now apply multiple types of influence to one map, so you can
Yes!
get Eater of Worlds influence alongside a Shaper or Elder Scarab on a Conqueror map. Together, these
That's
two
so
influences
cool!
combined have a very large effect on that map, and this will make Elder and Shaper Scarab significantly more desirable.
That's so cool!
The start
I actually
point of
proposed a
encountering
unique
Shaper,
map like
Elder,
that
or
the other
Conqueror
day.
Influence and influence items has been raised to level 81 areas. We've also fixed an issue that was causing some players to skip playing most of the contents of maps. On the lower half of the Atlas passive tree, there were a lot of small skills that granted a 2% chance for the map boss to drop an additional map. This meant that it was possible to sustain maps by rushing to those bosses and ignoring every other monster in the map. We have retained the overall bonus, but have changed it so the map drops from a random monster within the map rather than the boss.
Oh, that's trolly. I love it.
We're also addressing an issue with the way that you acquire Maven boss fight invitations. Currently, it's possible that you get hit with a bad streak of RNG and haven't found an invitation by the time you have enough bosses witnessed. You can now purchase these invitations from Kirak for a moderate price if you need to.
Guaranteed Maven invitation. Nice.
At the launch of the Siege of the Atlas expansion, we hosted a competition that saw players racing to be the first to kill Path of Exile's pinnacle bosses in hardcore solo self-found mode. The main prize for doing so was the ability to collaborate with us on the design of a unique item that would drop from a boss in Path of Exile's endgame.
Ooh, I
5
forgot
of these
about
uniques
this.
have been designed so far and will be featured in this expansion. The 6th one will be released once the winner has time to design it, very likely in 3.19. Call of the Void is a new cold-themed ring that was designed by Lighty and will drop from the Uber Elder. It causes all damage to chill and causes chilled enemies to shatter on death, as though they were frozen. On top of this, chilled enemies deal less damage back to you based on the magnitude of the chill affecting them. The only drawback is that all incoming damage also chills you, but there are many ways to mitigate this, and in some cases it's beneficial to builds that utilize self-chill as part of some crazy combo. This ring is useful for a wide variety of different
clever
in-game
design.
builds. Echoes of Creation is a new unique helmet, also designed by Lighty, which will drop from
War
the Shaper.
cries, come on.
It's designed for builds that use war cries and grants an extra use before cooldown to war cry skills that are softened in
Freaky
the
helmet looking.
It also grants more damage to exerted attacks based on the number of war cries affecting them, but causes you to take damage when you use these attacks. The self-damage number looks really scary, but it can be mitigated by various mechanics such as armor, endurance charges, and life recovery. This powerful niche helmet is ideal for characters that try to use as many war cries as they can. The third Lighty unique being introduced is the Burden of Truth, a unique belt which will drop from Cyrus. Broadly speaking, this belt encourages you to have healthy energy shield and life balls.
What is
Helps you to
Supreme
achieve this
Decadence?
by granting you additional energy shield based on a percentage of your maximum life value. The belt both lets some portion of chaos damage hit your energy shield, but also causes some non-chaos damage to bypass your energy shield like it was chaos damage. This is often an upside because splitting damage over
5% of
and
life
energy
is
shield
max
lets you
energy
recover
shield is
both
powerful.
simultaneously. The Supreme Decadence keystone that this belt grants, which is previously restricted to timeless jewels, causes your life flasks to apply to both your life and energy shield at a reduced rate. Overall, this belt is extremely powerful for characters who can build to have a decent energy shield pool while also using life flasks appropriately. The fourth new item that we're featuring today was created by Waggle. It's an amulet called the Eternal Struggle, which will drop from either the Infinite Hunger or the Black Star. The amulet has a pair of Eldritch mods, and the one that is dominant will be based on which of the bosses dropped it. The dominant mod also controls whether the amulet gives a Malignant Madness or Culling Strike bonus. You'll need to work out which of the two bosses to farm based on which half of the amulet you want to activate.
Interesting.
The final unique we're showcasing today was designed by Steel Mage. It's a unique jewel that drops from the Maven. The jewel refers to a random keystone on your passive skill tree and enables you to be able to allocate passives within a radius around that keystone without them being connected to the rest of the tree. While the keystone itself
that's
allocate,
cool. It's a
this jewel
wormhole.
allows you to jump across great distances on the passive tree in a very skill point efficient way. In addition to these uniques
That's
that have come
cool.
from the boss kill competition, we have added new unique items to the Uber Pinnacle boss fights that can be accessed through some of the new Keystone passives. These include a different variation of Thread of Hope that can drop from Uber Cyrus, a new unique jewel which can drop from the Uber Shaper, and special Forbidden Flame and Forbidden Flesh jewels which can roll exclusive Ascendancy notable passives that are not available anywhere else in the game.
Interesting.
You'll notice
Those
that
are
our
gonna be
last
valuable.
endgame expansion was just 3 months ago, and we're already extending the endgame even further. This is our plan for every expansion leading up to the release of Path of Exile 2. Rather than having
No
a much
shit.
bigger annual expansion, we plan to add as many endgame improvements into each quarterly expansion as we can, alongside its new
You're
challenges.
gonna run out of
So
ideas
there are
soon,
new
dude.
challenges to overcome every time you come back to Path of Exile.
One of the subtle
That's
but important
intense.
aspects of our plan is to keep adding powerful new chase rewards to Path of Exile's endgame, so that there are always new reasons to complete aspirational content. The boss kill competitions are great because they not only create these rewards, but also immortalize the achievements of some of Path of Exile's best players. We're going to run another boss kill competition at the launch of Sentinel.
They're gonna
This
add
time, players will have to defeat
Pinnacle
the versions of boss fights that are
uniques
unlocked by the
every
special Keystone
time?
passives. We'll post full information in
That's
the
so
lead up to
cool.
release.
We're gonna
We
try
need
something
more
new with
stuff
character
from
balance in this
endgame
expansion.
bosses, so
We're intentionally making no changes to character power. That means no nerfs, no buffs, nothing. Every single build
Nothing?
and build guide made for Siege of the Atlas will work exactly the same in Sentinel. You can start planning your release
Interesting.
starter right now with full confidence about exactly how it's going to play. However,
Nothing.
build exploration is still required in 3.18. Sentinel introduces many difficult challenges, both in the Challenge League itself and in the endgame content. And you're going to have to work out a plan to create characters that are able to handle this content. But at this release, you can hit the ground running, knowing with confidence which builds are a good starting point for you. We don't
And
intend
Beck
to
said
do this
nothing that
character
was
balance
mentioned in that
for
thread had been
release. For
nerfed,
example, 3.19
knowing full well
definitely
nothing had
contains
been
planned
nerfed.
changes to character balance. Even though there are no character balance changes in 3.18 though, we have still made some changes to actual game content. For example, let's talk about the changes to monster modifiers.
Magic and rare monsters
here we
in
go.
Path of Exile get a lot of their power from their modifiers. We came up with the majority of the monster mods over a decade ago, and only substantially added to them with the introduction of the Nemesis and Bloodlines leagues in 2013 and 2014. These mods are unfortunately showing their age. Many of them are unimpactful, and it's quite hard to quickly read their descriptions in the heat of combat. What we need is a new set of mods that are highly impactful in combat, keyworded with 1 to 2 colored words that are easy to read at a glance, and capable of producing dangerous combinations.
Arch Nemesis was the
This is
prototype.
exactly what we designed the Arch Nemesis mods to be, a replacement for the core monster mod pool. From 3.18 onwards, all previous monster mods have been replaced by Arch Nemesis mods. No other part of the Arch Nemesis League has been retained, so there's no more inventory or recipe management. Magic monsters have 1 Arch Nemesis mod, shared across their pack, and rare monsters typically have 2 mods. However, it's possible to encounter rare monsters with 3 or even 4 Arch Nemesis mods on them. Combinations of multiple synergistic mods can create quite interesting situations in combat. For example, if you encounter a monster with both Storm Strider and Ice Prison, the Ice Prison may block you off so that you are more likely to run into the lightning mirages from the Storm Strider mod. We've done a balance pass over the Arch Nemesis mods before making them core. Some have certainly had their power reduced, particularly when applied to magic monsters. We have also changed how monster experience and drops are calculated, so it's now far more about the difficulty of the mods than about the proportional size of the monster. Various Nemesis and Bloodlines modifiers that were not represented in the Arch Nemesis mod pool have been added in different ways. Path of Exile's challenge
Headhunter stuff.
The last 21 leagues. For Sentinel, we had a look at whether there were any easy ways we could update it based on what we have learned over the last 6 years. Our plan is to retain the model of 40 challenges with rewards that unlock as you progress through them, but with a goal of providing substantially more challenge to endgame players and substantially more rewards.
They're making it harder.
Of course. In order to achieve this,
More
we've crunched down the easier
cosmetics?
challenges so that the first reward unlocks after only 6 and the second at 12. These are equivalent in difficulty to 12 and 24 challenges from the old system, respectively. This change gives us a lot more space to ramp up to some incredibly difficult challenges towards the end, which will take a lot of time and skill to complete. There are now 10 different rewards you can unlock, which comprise 2 complete armor sets, each with a pair of wings. But be warned, the challenges you must complete are much
I don't care about
that we have ever set you before. We've been experimenting with support for
I don't care about armor sets.
Version of Path of Exile. During the
I want pets and portals, damn it.
For controller support, and have been making improvements based on your suggestions and feedback. We're pleased to announce that controller support on PC will officially launch alongside the Sentinel expansion. This also means that Path of Exile is now fully playable on the Steam Deck for those of you who are lucky enough to have one so far. Alongside finishing controller support for PC, we've also done a push on various small quality of life features in this expansion, which we'll reveal over the coming days. An example is that you can now choose whether your hideout portals can be accessed by one of 4 options: everyone, your friends, your guild members, or no one.
Interesting.
We've also improved how favored maps are selected on the Atlas. Rather than having to click on the map on the Atlas for every slot, you can instead click on one of your existing favored maps to quickly copy it to the new slot.
Oh, that's
this makes
quality
it a
of
lot faster
life.
to favor many instances of the same map at once. There are plenty more small QOL features crammed into Sentinel, and we'll cover these over the week leading up to release. Early in the Arch Nemesis League, we debuted Kerrick's Vault Pass. Purchasing this pass grants you access to Kerrick's Vault, where you can claim exclusive unique item skins as you complete map bonus objectives in the Atlas endgame. The Vault Pass for the Arch Nemesis League is only available for a few more days and will leave the store forever when this league ends. There's no penalty for purchasing the pass late in the league after you've wrapped up your map completion. So if you are pleased with where you got to in Arch Nemesis and want to lock in your unique skins, it's not too late to buy your pass now. Thank you to everyone who unlocked Kerrick's Vault. We had a lot of fun putting it together and tried to think of fun ways that unique item skins can interact with gameplay.
Is there going to be another one?
The purchases directly fund development of both Path of Exile 1 and 2. A brand new Vault Pass will launch alongside the Sentinel League. Like the previous one,
that's a Chevron's wrappings.
Unique item skins that can be unlocked as you complete map bonus objectives. We'll post
Arcali's Fang
closer to launch. To buy either the Arch Nemesis Pass now, before it leaves the store forever.
There's a Shavs and an Arcali's Fang skin, it looks like, because of the spoders.
Alongside today's livestream, we're launching 2 new series of supporter packs, the Arcanist and Reaper packs. Each tier contains the pack's full face value in points, plus several exclusive microtransactions. These packs are only available during the Sentinel League and will leave the store forever in 3 months. Every microtransaction you're about to see is entirely cosmetic and does not affect your character's progression or power. The Arcanist Pack series contains 7 exclusive microtransactions.
Is
The
that
cloak
a
of elements
hideout?
indicates the power of your fire, cold, and lightning resistances on your back. When a resistance is capped, the effect is extra strong.
That's cool.
While wearing the Ring of the Black Star, your level up effect looks like this. In the Timekeeper's hideout, you can use the Chronosphere to change the time of day from dawn to noon to dusk to night.
There's a hideout in the supporter packs. Oh god, I need to work extra to be able to earn that. And that's a cool-ass hideout gimmick.
With Chevron's tome on your belt, identifying items will cause exploding books to appear nearby. The Mage Blue
They're going all out with this.
Greater intensity as you open higher tier maps.
Oh my god, I want all of this. Oh my god, that map device is so cool!
To your weapon. Any attacks that stun will cause your enemies to have an out-of-body experience.
That's cool too. Oh my god, they went all out with these supporter packs.
Causes an explosion and sets your character on fire. The Reaper Pack series also has 7 exclusive cosmetic microtransactions. The Soul Harvester's cloak's power is based on the number of enemies your character has killed. With the Belt of the Hive
Like,
Queen equipped,
over time?
blasts you use
Overall?
will cause blood-sucking insects to appear all over your character.
Oh, that's gross.
The Ghostlit Graveyard is a hideout where you can control the color of its torches. It also comes
Alright,
with
I like
6
the other
exclusive
hideout better.
Hideout decorations. Medidrone
I hope the
will follow
hideouts
you
are
around
like
and use a healing beam on you whenever you're gaining
$30
life.
ones.
Thanks, Medidrone. The Underworld portal
Cute.
opens a gateway to hell. Its effect upgrades in Part 2 and again in maps, where it indicates what tier of map you're playing.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. They went all out with these. Holy shit.
While wearing the Ring of the
So many
Exorcist,
unique
any
effects.
spells you cast will exorcise the ghosts of your enemies if you crit. While using the Grim Reaper apparition, the Reaper will appear and cull any unique or rare enemies you slay. As I mentioned before, these packs are exclusive to the Sentinel League and will leave the store in 3 months. They're available right now at pathofexile.com/purchase, and they directly fund the ongoing development of Path of Exile 2 and Path of Exile 1 expansions like Sentinel. We greatly appreciate your support.
I'm going to have to work extra this month so I can afford
Thanks for
that.
joining us and checking out
Holy
today's
shit.
reveals. We can't wait to see you in Rayclast on May 13th. We'll begin the Q&A in a few moments, so please get your questions ready in chat.
Alright, Q&A time. Holy shit! I think the wildest part of this is that there's no balance changes whatsoever. At all for characters. Everything will be the same as in 317. Was it 317? I think it was 317. Holy balls. So I can play EA Totems again. I had fun with that. Yeah, I guess they like how characters are playing. They like the general game balance. And probably what motivates Stone, now that I think about it, probably what motivates it is they want to see how current game balance handles the new Uber bosses. Those are going to be interesting. There will probably be an endgame grind to kill all of those a bunch of times. If they're doing 40 challenges and making them all way more difficult. God. I'm going to have to take a look at that new hideout and see if I want to switch to that. What are some good builds for this patch? Explosive Arrow Ballista Totems. is the one that's pointed to a lot as being really good. Yeah, Archnemesis combos on rares is going to be interesting. I don't know how I feel about that, because some of that stuff was wild. That's going to make things much more difficult. And I guess it begs the question of, are they coming with any sort of reward for, like, would Tukohama Touch come with any special reward, or... Does EA Totems take expensive setup? I don't know, I just got lent the build. Do you know what this means? No, what does it mean?
G'day Exiles, and welcome back. It is Ziggy D here with none other than Chris Wilson. How you going this morning, Chris?
Hey, good, thanks. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks for hosting another Q&A and having me on to ask you some questions. Always a pleasure. I think we have to straight away jump into the last part. This is completely different to my planned order of events here, but does the Medi-Drone actually heal you? People are almost like pay to win in chat.
Oh no, it's just an effect that shows when you're getting healing, when you're getting healed from flasks and stuff, which you can see in the UI already, but this is just a different way of seeing it visually, and that's a theme for a lot of the new microtransaction, is trying a new visual twist on showing information that players already have access to.
Yeah, you guys are kind of
too quiet
a little bit there. Although I have to say I wasn't really a fan of the blood-sucking insects one. Why would I pay money for that? That's horrible.
I reckon it's going to be low-key quite popular, because what's going to happen is the packs will eventually go off sale, people will have it, and they'll forget about it, and then you'll see someone covered in insects and think, what is happening?
Oh no, that's my least favorite thing. Thank you. Okay. So I thought we'd kick things off actually with Sentinel first. And I wanted to ask what inspirations led to us having a cute little drone league this time around.
Well, we tried not to make them too cute. So our motivation here was that we wanted to have a combat mechanic that was kind of like a build your own breach kind of thing. Something where you can take combat with you and it doesn't interrupt the flow of gameplay. You know, normally when you're playing like Breach or Delirium, there's a point in the map where we say now it's time for there to be some dynamic combat stuff. And so here we thought, what if we make a mechanic where several different times during a map, the player can choose the right time that they get to deploy their Sentinel and have juiced up combat for a while.
Does a design like this happen with where you come up with the idea first and then the mechanics of it follow on? Or do you have like, oh, we want to do this mechanically, try and come up with a theme for this?
We came up with mechanics first. In this case, the goal was to have something which tags monsters around you, making them a lot harder and more rewarding. And then from there, we realized we can have complicated mods on this. And it actually started off with a bit of an organic theme. Like our initial random idea, you know, thrown together on a Saturday was that this was some kind of growth on the character that projects something at the monsters. And that's actually why... So, computer scientists in the crowd will notice that the method we use for combining Sentinels is very similar to genetic programming, the concept of taking some properties from one, properties from the other, and having a chance of mutation. And that analogy worked well with the organic side, because you're kind of like breeding these growths or whatever, but it ended up working a lot better, like, you know, in terms of understandability, to have Sentinels that follow you around. And the analogy for creating new ones there is that because the power is depleted, you need to create a new one around a power core, and you don't really know how the Sentinels work. Because they're ancient technology. So you're kind of putting it together the best you can, and that's why you get a combination of properties and also some random quirky mutations occasionally.
Nice. I prefer this approach, I think, for a few reasons, but I'm interested in this idea of
growth on the character would have
fantasy technology, like ancient lost technologies that are more advanced. That's like a theme I love, and it's something that Path of Exile's been doing more and more over time, this sort of like ancient, otherworldly, or esoteric technology. Has this always been a plan for PoE's like world building, or is it something that's evolved over time?
Well, there was a bit of it there from the beginning with the Val, right? They're a civilization that clearly has a lot of interesting stuff going on that predates what the player is currently doing by thousands of years. And so we established the fact that they have stuff like floating machines already. Now, of course, the Sentinels are not Val technology. They're something else that players might be able to piece clues together about, but yeah, we feel it's established that there is ancient technology that's honestly a lot more powerful than what's going on in Rayclast currently.
Is it Kalguran stuff?
When ancient technologies like automatic doors are lost. Too bad. Maybe we'll rediscover such technologies one day.
What about the weight of the door?
Oh no. Quote. Perfect. So how much harder do the Sentinels make enemies, and in what ways do they make them harder? I wasn't really clear on that watching it.
So they make combat harder in several ways. From your point of view, the monsters that when they attack you, they're doing damage and more stuff, and when you attack them, they're harder to kill. And this honestly varies a lot depending on the rarity of the
Sentinels
monster.
that make
With a normal
specific
monster, which
bosses
obviously is
harder
very
are
low
going to
life
be
and damage
their
to start
own
with, they're
kind
buffed
of
a lot more percentage-wise than a rare or unique monster. So if we're applying, like, I don't
their
know, this is
own
me picking
kind
a
of
number out of the air,
pinnacle
like a
boss,
400%
sort of.
buff to a normal monster, we're certainly not applying a 400% buff.
Depending
buff
on
to
how
Katava.
much it buffs them.
And it's in a way similar to Delirium. It did similar types of scaling. Now, this also depends on the type of Sentinel. For example, the one that empowers the entire screen, the Pandemonium Sentinel, it has a bit less of a buff than the one which is specifically there to target specific monsters, or the one which is a little bit slower at targeting ones, the Stalker Sentinel. And all of this is captured in that empowerment arbitrary number that's scored on the Sentinel. And this is just a number. It doesn't directly correlate to a percentage the player can understand, but it is used internally at different, different scaling amounts depending on what type of monster it is. Generally, more empowerment equals more damage reduction, and of course better rewards. Now, the key thing about this is that we've tried very hard to make sure that empowerment is given to you proportional to any extra bonuses and stuff you're getting. So it's like with maps where you get pack size and quantity and that kind of thing as you put harder and harder mods on the maps. The same thing is true for your Sentinels, that as you make better and better ones, they'll proportionally get better empowerment to go with it.
Okay. I like the idea that this is like ancient lost technology we don't understand, and also the mechanic is a little bit obscure as well. Was that kind of intentional?
We especially don't want people understanding how the combination process stuff works, but yeah, the general rule is Sentinels give you the opportunity to make combat a lot harder than normal, and in return you'll get rewarded. And there are some cases where the rewards double dip, which are quite interesting that I can talk about.
People sorting through like the game code to better understand mechanics like this has been a thing for as long as Path of Exile's been a thing, but how do you design something like that then that manages to keep some level of obscurity in a system like this?
Well, from a crafting point of view, the rules are all server-side, so we can come up with complicated random things on the server and hope people can't reverse engineer it. On the client, though, I believe there's nothing that they can reverse engineer that will relate to this damage stuff, so we pretty much get to make big spreadsheets on our end, implement it to do that model, and try as much as possible to make sure that players are rewarded for any additional difficulty they have. We don't want a situation where you get a bad Sentinel that's making combat harder and not giving you something for it. And so every bit of additional difficulty will give you additional item quantity, rarity, and experience, notwithstanding any of the other bonuses you get to item drops.
I find that like balancing point of like the obscurity versus players, like if something is learnable, then players feel like they maybe have to learn it as well, whereas the opposite is true as if it's unlearnable in an extent. But at the same time, you have to think about whether players can sort of still engage with the mechanic and feel like they're having some level of control over it. Do you think there's like a level of player control here?
Well, we want to make sure that people understand the core principles of it,
way,
even if the actual math behind the scenes is intentionally obfuscated. And the principle here basically is, it's like with other things that juice the combat difficulty is, juice it as much as you can, but not too much, otherwise you'll die. And so there's an extreme level of player control here for a few reasons. Firstly, you choose when to deploy a Sentinel in the map, and which Sentinel to deploy. Secondly, you choose which Sentinel you're using, like what mods it has on it. Are you using a unique? Are you using just a regular magic one?
I'm sure you have a feel about hiding stuff from players. Yeah, I'm mixed on it myself.
You have your entire
I
Sentinel
do like
controller to
the
spec how you
idea
want.
of the player base having to figure stuff out and share and communicate between them.
More in the direction of rewards and less
and just data mining everything out of the game.
Of course, respecing there is free,
as
so
soon
it's
as the patch
relatively
happens,
easy
kind of
to
gets rid of
dynamically
that.
adjust the difficulty, so it's never too hard for you, and you're just getting constant rewards from it.
Nice. How much is this affecting the reward then, since we're juicing up these monsters?
The empowerment that affects difficulty also proportionally affects item quantity, rarity, and experience. And you can also get these additional reward icons on monsters. You'll notice in the footage, when the Sentinels empower monsters, occasionally you see like a currency icon or something appear above them, or a unique icon. Now, it's worth noting, there's a base level of monsters giving out these reward icons, of Sentinels giving out these reward icons. So even if you have no mods on the Sentinel and no speccing into anything fancy, you'll occasionally get reward icons. But there are lots of mods that will give you additional reward icons a percentage of the time. Now, these mods are factored into the empowerment number, so it double dips where, because the mod is on the thing, the monster is slightly harder, which means that it stacks more rarity and quant as a side effect. And so you get kind of a double dipping effect there, where you get twice as many, effective rewards.
Double dipping. How often do Sentinels drop, and where do we get them? dig 'em
Well, you
up.
can find Sentinels as you play through the game, and they also drop from Sentinel caches, which are, scattered throughout the world. They're pretty often. The intention is not that you run out of Sentinels, right? You'll always have Sentinels to use. The question is whether you have good ones or not. And you'll notice they're corrupted, so you can't just drop AUX on them. It is actually difficult to have a constant supply of good rare Sentinels, but you can put the work in, you can spec into this stuff, you can, do clever combining, and we expect that any good player in Path of Exile will generally have good Sentinels that they can use most of the time. And I understand the concerns that this feels like a bit of micromanagement,
go back and watch
but it honestly plays pretty streamlined. Essentially, you can use Sentinels for a number of maps, and there are lots available to drop more ones in as they're depleted. And if you liked a Sentinel enough that you miss it when it's run out of power, then that's a really good candidate for combining. Because if you combine two things together and you liked both of them, chances are you're getting something roughly similar out the other end. Occasionally you might get something worse, but sometimes you'll also get something better, and it could get a cool mutation on it where you get some mod which you'd never considered that suddenly starts like duplicating enemies when they're tagged, for example, or doing a lot of other cool stuff. And so we'll see some very interesting things where people are, this is the worst analogy to ever mention on Twitch, but they'll kind of be like breeding a bloodline of good Sentinels, if you see what I mean.
I've been playing Crusader Kings recently. I know all about that. Okay.
I'm going to just switch to Twitch chat. Nice.
How crucial
Pedigree.
is this, like, combining
Pedigree is the
multiple
word you're looking for.
Sentinels? And how do you, like, design a mechanic like this to avoid the, like, talisman-like for the old players of PoE situations where these mechanics become really laborious because there's a lot of combining?
So you don't really combine up through the tiers. You find better tiers of Sentinels. So as you play through the game, you'll find better and better ones. You do combine if you want to have a chance at making Sentinels that have combinations of mods that you like. So the theoretical best Sentinels can come from combining. So in terms of base types, the way it works is there's a progression from low level to high level, just like bows or wands or something like that. And we also have a few other
I can see people
base
complaining
types that can
about
only come
managing
from
Sentinels
but once
the
you've
same
got
way
it
they
from
manage
combining,
Keystones,
you can then
but the
potentially
fact that a
assist
Sentinel
that one
lasts
by
for 8
combining
to
with
10
other ones
maps,
and getting lucky. The purpose of combining is when you're
or 8
finished
to
with
10
two Sentinels
areas,
you found effective, you
mitigates
get a
that a
chance
lot.
to get something that's moderately similar to what you put in. And that really helps with sustaining rare Sentinels as well as occasionally getting good unique ones and so on. The talisman comparison is a good one, but we have learnt very much from the problems of that league. And the first problem we had with talisman was that the item you were making was competing with amulets, right? It was hard to get good rare talismans, and it was easy to get good rare amulets, so therefore talismans were worthless much of the time. Here, it is hard to get good rare Sentinels, but nothing else can go in that slot, and so it's a bit of a slower item progression than what people are used to. We've definitely designed the combining system to be more of a crafting system, rather than talisman, where you couldn't do stuff on demand. If you wanted to do combining, you had to go and find some stones, do a whole boss fight, etc. Here, you can make new Sentinels wherever you want to.
The item crafting system where you can combine armors in a similar fashion, how similar is that to the Sentinel crafting? Like, will combining a bunch of Sentinels kind of give you an idea of how that's going to then work on items?
Yes, it's quite similar. Basically, we were looking for something you can do to make new, really cool rares, and we realized that we have the system that was entirely designed around the genetic programming of assembling new Sentinels, and it would work really well for rare items. And so we basically tried it, and we came up with a bunch of interesting mods that can go on each of the slots, and I think we haven't previewed any particular ones yet, but the announcement page at pathofexile.com/sentinel has a bunch of mods that people can see in the relevant hovers there, and there's some pretty juiced stuff.
We'll check that out after the stream.
People quite interested. But the intention basically is, this is not meant to be the way that people make the best item in the game, but it may make some of the best items in the game if they're lucky. And we've had conversations internally that involve questions like putting items that are mirror-worthy versus items that are strange on the other side, and interesting border cases that happen with the rules to try to make items that are mirror-worthy come out that, Anyway, interesting stuff going on with that. So we think that the Path of Exile players will really like trying to model how that works and to get the best value for their recombinators.
That's me every time I craft anything in PoE. This won't make the best item in the game.
Hopefully it's not as much spreadsheet nightmare as synthesis.
It's certainly a non-deterministic crafting thing, but it should be interesting. And I think especially if some of these recombinators make their way into standard, there could be some interesting things that happen after the league ends.
Are there any like hard rules with this recombinator thing, like for getting the specific modifiers, or is it just kind of going to be like very hard to understand?
It's very random, but I'll be more specific about roughly how this works, and this is probably the most information you're getting, right? So
you put 2 items in, and it's going to pick one of the 2 base types. So, for example, it'll pick the left or the right. Now, with Sentinels, it has a chance to mutate the base type into a special one or to create a unique. We don't want the recombination process for your equipment to necessarily just randomly change the base type on you or to turn into a unique, because honestly, sometimes that's going to be worth less than the items you put in. So once it's picked a base type, for Sentinels, it uses that base type, and for your items, it retains all the properties of that core base type. For example, any enchants you've got on it, any sockets, corrupted status, implicits, all of that stuff, catalysts or whatever. This all gets dragged along with whichever base type was selected. Then for the explicit mod selection, it basically puts everything in a pool and selects some subset of it. So you get some mods from one of the items, some mods from the other. Sometimes you're unlucky and get way fewer mods than you started with. Sometimes you're lucky and get a whole bunch of good ones you liked. Then there's a chance for various things to occur, like it randomly tinkering with the tiers of the mods or rerolling values. And of course, it can add special mods, basically the mutation outcomes from a special pool. And that's where the really good Sentinel stuff is. You really want to get that available in the pool of stuff that you're combining, because then you get some really, really powerful Sentinels. Obviously, relatively optional, of course. The Sentinels work well without those mods, but they're a lot more powerful with them. And the same is true for regular rare items. If you are doing this basically recombination lottery, you get the ability to get, like, keystones on body armors and that kind of stuff, which could be pretty useful.
Fun. That does sound like a lot of fun. Back to gameplay on Sentinel for a little bit. What's to stop players from using a Sentinel on a boss like right before it dies to subvert the challenge?
Right, so basically when a monster is empowered, it is fully healed. And most of the time, Sentinels empower monsters before you get a chance to get to that monster, and so there's no problem whatsoever. If you were to, try to cheese a boss down to low life and then bring your Sentinel out, then yes, you do have to fight it again. It's worth noting, by the way, one of the pieces of consistent feedback we've had internally when people first see our promotional material before they've played the League is they say, well, with Path of Exile clear speed what it is, this is going to be so lame because the Sentinels are slow at tagging monsters and therefore I have to wait for them all the time. When they play the League, they realize it's very, very easy to spec into a Sentinels are very fast at tagging monsters and chain through monsters, and you get multiple beams, multiple chains, lots of tagging speed. And generally speaking, we've tested on very fast map characters, and if you spec correctly, there's no problem whatsoever with the Sentinels staying ahead of you. And of course, you have ones that hit a whole screen at once. The other thing to note is, and this is something that we didn't really emphasize there, is the Sentinels tag up to a specific number of monsters. I don't think I'll ever have the problem. So this means the one that tags the whole screen, you don't need to go and grab the entire map. Like, you don't have to have this lame playstyle where you pull the whole map to one place and then hit go to get everything tagged. It does have a limit. And this also means that as long as you're killing fast enough and the Sentinel's tagging stuff fast enough that you use its full limit, then it doesn't really matter if it misses hitting a couple of monsters due to you being so OP, because you'll still get full value out of that Sentinel.
Okay. How does co-op work in Sentinel? I'm always interested in this question.
So basically with co-op, we've tried really hard to make sure that it doesn't penalize players. Both players can use their Sentinels in a map. A monster can only be tagged by only empowered by one Sentinel at once, but they can tag more monsters in an instance. When we're doing leagues, we try very hard to make sure nowadays that you're not in any way penalized for being in a party. So technically speaking, yes, playing in a party would let you tag an awful lot of monsters.
Yeah, that's
okay. Cool.
I thought it would only be like the map creator or something, but I like that a lot more.
There's some good griefing opportunities where,
that's much better.
Your guy you're playing with is waiting to tag the map boss with an Apex Sentinel, so you just hit your Pandemonium one faster than him and just tag the map boss with really quick. This is immediately what comes to mind for me.
That's fine though, because like if you're playing in a party, you should be like trying to work together, and if you're not, well,
are you sure? My first experience with multiplayer Diablo 2 was we were killing Duriel in a public Battle.net game. This is back like 22 years ago. And I'm playing an Amazon. So Duriel dies, drops Worm Skull. Grab it as fast as I can. And the Necro says, "Who got that?" And I say nothing. So that's the history.
And that explains everything about your trade philosophy.
Yeah, that's fair. That's why we have being able to kill each other at the bandits.
Honestly, yeah. It's nice for there to be some sharp edges occasionally.
Yeah. The bandit one's always like such an easy thing to forget as well.
Yeah. And chat's right, this is ninja looting, not scamming. We didn't have a deal. We didn't know. He wasn't helping me with Duriel. I was helping him.
It's very different. Okay. Okay. With league mechanics like this, when they're itemized in some way, it inevitably comes up. You have to make a decision about whether they're tradable or not. So what keeping things tradable is often much more in the spirit of Path of Exile, I find. We've sometimes seen this actually makes players less willing to use the mechanic themselves, like for Expedition, for example, where people were selling all of their currency instead of using it. What goes into the decision to make something like Sentinel tradable?
So in general, tradability is preferred, especially when there's other forms of progression. Like in Arch Nemesis, the mods that you had were your progression. And so if we made those tradable, then you could literally skip the league, find some exalts, trade them for the ability to do the hardest Arch Nemesis content. Here, because you have your Sentinel Controller, which powers up as you kill empowered enemies, you do actually have to engage with the league to progress with it, and therefore tradability is totally fine with the items in it. We also wanted to make sure with the combining system that players are able to trade for Sentinels that will combine well together, right? You know, there's one of those things where if you look at your pool of Sentinels and realize you don't have a good combine available, but you have a couple of Chaos Orbs spare, maybe you trade for something amazing and try to, you know, something that's been depleted and try to combine it with something that you liked. This also means that once you've finished with a Sentinel, like let's say you don't like combining, you just want to play with your Sentinels, you can take the ones that were good and rather than combining them, you can trade them to other people to get some currency that you can use to buy potentially full Sentinels or actual items you want to play with or maps or whatever it is you're looking for.
I feel like we're creating cyberpunk scrap merchants now. That's fun. Great. Lots of people are asking about Headhunter with the Arch Nemesis mods now.
Oh yes, this I would like to
how is Headhunter working now with this change?
It's just the same as before, right? Yeah, you steal the mods and then you're powerful and then we cry.
Also, because you mentioned it earlier, everyone's asking about Ultimatum as well. I know that Bex
oh man, stealing Kitava Touch would be interesting.
What's the news with Ultimatum?
We have a specific plan for Ultimatum, and we like this plan, and it's cool. And it's honestly cooler than the plan of let's just bring it back next league or something. And so we're going to do the cool plan, but that means you're not going to see Ultimatum for a little while. And I can't give any more information out. So yeah, no Ultimatum, but it's not just being ignored, right? And we have an awesome plan for it.
You're teasing the Ultimatum.
What could their plan be?
Looking at mechanics and being like, it's just like Ultimatum.
The good news is the Alter stuff in its current form will feel a lot more like Ultimatum, right? So they get to enjoy that.
That's what I mean. Yeah, that's good. On this topic, before we move on, we have apparently a lot of questions from chat. Okay. Well, HD, will there be any raw currency to refill the Sentinels? Just like if you have a good one, you just want to straight up recharge it.
We don't have any raw currency that does, but you will be going through quite a lot of Sentinels, and this is intentional. And to be completely honest, I'm going to explain this, right? So we know that it's controversial that these things run out of charge, right? We're not trying to just hurt the players. But in the version of this that we designed, where you use them forever, it was really boring. You get an okay Sentinel on day 2, and you just use it forever. And because of that, we had to make the good mods really rare, and you never see them, and you'll never find a Headhunter Sentinel, and it was terrible. And so we tried this model where they run out of charge, and you're constantly combining stuff together, and you see the full gamut of the league, you try new experiences, and you get to see a lot of the cool mods, because we just ramped the spawn rate of everything. Like, that Headhunter Sentinel, the Hollow-Eyed Skull, you're probably going to find one, right? Like, it's consumable. It doesn't matter balance-wise if you have an insane time for a few maps, and this means that if you want to play with it every map, you just trade for one over and over. And so the model here with the recharging, honestly, is so much more fun than the one where you just get.
I'd be disappointed if the God Touch mods weren't
going to be never touch the league again.
Like, that's the pinnacle of the Arch Nemesis system.
And
they're talking about how dangerous they're going to make it.
Okay.
So I would be very surprised if the God Touch mods don't make it in.
It's just clicking on the sections, basically. There are these grooves, you click on it, a filament appears, you click on it, it goes away. It's literally a planning tool, right? There's no item, there's no specking, there's no points. Basically, you have an amount of power that will flow through the filaments wherever you've marked you want the power to go. And so basically, you could Google and find the best filament guide and spec it in on the first day and leave it and never open the panel again for the entire league, and it will magically fill with power as you level up your Sentinel controller. Or you can go in there and tinker with it. And we're far more worried, because a lot of people, when looking at the reaction, were saying this is complicated and involves micromanagement. But I expect, honestly, they'll just spec something that looks good, later change it once or twice, and be done with it for the most part. Unless you're a player who really, really cares about micromanaging stuff, in which case, have a great time. To the point where we have insane rules to do with snapshotting to stop people, like, auto hotkeying something where it changes to one Sentinel spec, they release that Sentinel, then they change it to a different, like... The abuse case makes this a living nightmare to implement, but we think we've got something that's not going to get in the way of players actually playing it.
I didn't even think about that.
Well, I'm glad we thought of it before the players did, because
yeah, that's good. They're giving us infinite filaments. I'm so excited. So good. A name that is way too long, Namvan, asks, can you use unique Sentinels to make other Sentinels?
They're not currently used in combining, but that doesn't mean we wouldn't randomly turn that on without telling people, if you see what I mean. But go experiment with stuff. This is the fun part of the league. We've got it in testing. It's going to be on alpha probably today for people who have alpha access. Do not email me for alpha access. You will not. Anyway, sorry. Just saving my inbox. We've got it going on alpha. We're going to get feedback, and this is the week where we get to make extra things that are fun, right? We get to look at it and go, maybe we should allow combining uniques or something like that, and come up with some extra stuff. So yeah, we'll come up with some cool ideas there.
I love the idea of combining uniques. That's super fun. With these recombinations, Emrys asks, is there any way to connect influences on items together? Say you combine 2 different influence items together. Can they do the same thing as an Awaken Orb and smush them together?
I'm going to do the dev check on that one to make sure I'm explaining exactly how it works. So what's the deal with influences?
Well, the short answer is no.
Yep.
The long answer is it picks the non-influence base type. Then it won't be able to select influence mods.
Right, okay. So when it's selecting base types,
so you have to use an Awakener's Orb
and if it picks one that is not influenced, it cannot select mods from the other one that have that influence, or have influence, because then they couldn't copy across. So the influences have to match in order for it to copy the mod. And there's still so much crazy abuse that players will work out with this kind of stuff. Like, we're coming up with crazy cases here where we have to put contrived stuff in.
That means Awakener's Orbs aren't completely obsoleted. That's cool.
Even then, there's going to be a lot of rares that really have impossible mods on them that we are tolerating, and that's only the stuff we can think about, so yeah.
All right. That answers the following question. Perfect. In that case, we shall move on to the next section. Let's talk a little bit about the endgame Atlas, in particular the passive tree side of things, which was a huge introduction last league and been expanded upon with Keystones this time around. So we're being given a lot more control over our endgame experience now, both these days in general and also specifically now. Like Keystones, for example, allowing us to only drop our favorite maps, and nodes that disable unwanted league mechanics and such. This and the new passive tree overall feels like a big shift compared to PoE of yesteryear. What's led to the dramatic change for PoE's endgame and like player agency?
This is a big change in how they approach the Atlas.
A lot of the time when we change our mind about something or do an experiment is because Path of Exile 2 is in the future. And we want to make sure Path of Exile 2 is the best game for the players possible. And that means, generally speaking, if we've tried something and there's a possibility we want to do it differently in PoE 2, we will try the other thing. And so with Siege of the Atlas, we said, have a ton of control over all this stuff. And players loved it, and it went really well. And so we're giving a bunch more control here, see how that goes. We have a lot of stuff lined up for the endgame updates between now and PoE 2, and we'll get a bunch of information, and then, you know, reserve the right to change things massively when PoE 2 comes out.
They successfully identified that they did it right the first time.
It's a nice like safety net for you guys, I guess, because with a PoE 2, you can suddenly make big sweeping changes that otherwise people might be a little bit more resistant to. So
we have a schedule for like, I know exactly how many leagues there are between now and PoE 2, and we're putting the bullet points in of what we're going to do in these, and that's really helpful. Like, it gives us an actual runway of knowing this is how many times we have to experiment. Like, I have hard mode penciled in for one of these releases, and we know exactly ideally how that element's going to finish up and how much time it's going to give us between the release of hard mode and the release of PoE 2 for us to take feedback into account and see if there's any tweaks we'd make to the itemization based on data from that.
How many leagues are until PoE, sorry, did you say?
It's a number. It's a countable whole number.
And I guess the follow-up question for a later question I was going to ask anyway. How many leagues until hard mode?
Nope, this league's not over. It's not a whole number.
But we can talk about that when you ask the question.
All right. Well, I'm sure that's in my list somewhere. Back to the Atlas, though, since that's what we're talking about at the moment. How successful overall do you feel that the new Atlas passive tree has been, and by what metrics do you tend to measure success of something like this when you implement it?
So we didn't really use metrics. We kind of knew it's awesome because we play the game ourselves and we know it kind of feels right to us. So when we did it, we thought this is cool, and that's kind of good enough. And sure, if players absolutely hated it, we would have had a second thought about that, but we didn't look at metrics, I mean, here's an interesting thing, right? if you said to me, what was player retention
I want
like
to see a
last
heat
league, I
map
would have said,
of the most
absolutely
allocated
amazing.
nodes.
Best ever. People played more and all this amazing stuff. But if you look at the numbers, they quit in droves when Lost Ark came out because you can't miss the release of that game, right? And then Elden Ring came out. Like, there was no way that people were going to get the full in-game experience. But yet, I still feel that endgame had the best retention because the players who happened to not be interested in the other two games played so much more than usual. And so to some extent, because a lot of our community went to play those
I'm glad
really
they
good other
identified what the
RPGs,
actual
we're
retention
expecting
problem
this
was.
is the actual release of the end game for them. Like, there are so many people who, and we're ignoring the fact that Diablo Immortal comes out in a few weeks, by the way, guys. That's not a game. We're going to play Path of Exile. But because people are sticking around for the whole league this time, they're actually going to have a full league with the new system.
Oh, shots fired.
That's like an interesting counterpoint, I guess, like looking at metrics then, is that there's always like other things that are going on as well. Because I think a lot of people feel the same way, that like this last league is like in some ways the best Path of Exile has been, especially for me, like endgame, especially like best endgame I've played in PoE. And yet other games came out.
Oh, definitely. This is the best endgame has ever been.
No, I completely understand. And that was unlucky for us.
Yeah,
It
it's
would
a
have been
phone
great
game.
if
They
we
are
did,
doing
have an uninterrupted 3
PC
months,
release,
like,
apparently,
and
but
that involves other games. And
that
with this
is the
release as
phone
well,
game.
it also gives people, because of the static balance thing where there's a balance freeze, it gives people the ability to just pre-plan what build they're going to play and just know there's all this cool in-game stuff they can do and have a chance to actually, like, when our internal staff members worked out due to lack of balance things, the balance is probably going to be the same. I started to see people like 2 weeks, 3 weeks
I do
before
have
the
a
end of the
phone,
league,
but I did not have a
start testing
smartphone when
characters that
that
are already public
incident
characters.
happened.
You know, nothing's changed, of course, because they want to be ready for league launch
I had a
day, and that
flip
gives
phone.
all of the players the ability to do the same thing, where they can pick a build, try it out, you know, work out their
you
plan,
guys
and know
not
with
have
confidence
phones?
there's no
God.
surprise nerfs in there. And this went to the point where there are
I
bug
love that they
fixes,
made fun of
where I've
that
had
with
very long
Einhar
repeated
going,
conversation with people
"What?
say to me,
Do you
"It's
not
a
have
nerf,
nets, Exile?"
It's a bug fix, Chris, and we haven't put it in because technically it does affect how a build performs. And so we've left bugs in the damn game for this league. They're going to be fixed in 3.19, but you get to use those bugs again if you want to, if that's the build.
Okay, I find that really funny. Oh no, okay. No, what were we talking about? I feel like we're getting sidetracked a lot today. It's great. Oh yeah, so
Talking
the
about the
passive
Atlas.
tree, the Atlas passive tree thing. That thing's awesome. I love that. How do you guys feel about where like the concept of tree lock-in is at? That is like the ease and cost of respeccing the Atlas tree.
We're pretty happy with it. There's the vendor trade that caps the price from things getting too expensive, and we're not seeing players constantly respecking the tree too often. To some extent, we want it to be expensive to respec, but you know, it's turned out to be in a pretty good place. So we do want to avoid strategies where you
Good,
respec
it is in a
between
good
encounters
place.
and so on. But technically, if you have the wealth, you can do that kind of strategy if you need to.
Yeah, it's kind of in line with the regular passive trees in that regard. The only kind of like friction point that I've thought of there is the idea of like different characters having the same shared passive tree. I love that it's shared progression, but rather if you've got like a bossing character and a mapping character, it's awkward that you can't have like separate trees for them. Is that something you guys have talked about at all?
There's some discussion about this. Like, we do acknowledge that that's certainly a thing, but we don't have any firm
setting
plans
up
for it.
different trees for different characters
There's
would be
various
cool.
repercussions, both from a implementation point of view and in terms of, like, obviously it lets you then have multiple Atlas specs that you can easily switch between for the cost of just hitting maps with a new character, which may be enough of a cost, but we don't have any firm plans, but it's certainly something that's being discussed.
Okay. Do you guys have like allocation, like heat maps for the Atlas passive tree? I think I remember you releasing something like that for the regular.
Hey,
passive
heat
tree at
maps,
some point.
yes.
Is that something you look at all?
We can generate the data. We generally don't generate the data. Like, there was an internal joke that we generate stats for news posts, and then we get a chance to see what people are doing. You know, we honestly balance based on actually how things feel a lot of the time, because it's just so easy to look at the stats and completely misinterpret how something, completely misinterpret the stats by accident. There are people who write in by looking at PoE.Ninja and say, because of this percentage, you need to do blah. And when we look at our data just to double check it, it's entirely different because of some, bad statistics used, or that's only high-level characters or whatever. Like, here's an example, right? We were talking about Detonate Dead as a league starter, and I mentioned in conversation it's going to be pretty popular for reasons. And someone goes and looks up Detonate Dead on PoE.Ninja and sees that at the top of the ladder it's not really that popular compared to other builds. Well, obviously, as a league starter is not something that people are sitting at level 100 with. And so it's super easy if someone just goes and gets data to actually cause damage. Like, you have to think quite a lot more than that. So we try not to pre-generate data to look at and find problems with. And while it's cool to have heat maps, and I'm sure to make a good image, we haven't bothered. And I mean, we haven't made a concerted effort to buff or nerf specifically mechanics on the Atlas tree. We just fixed a few specific things like certain influence types being too strong. But generally speaking, this isn't path of nerfs for the Atlas tree either. Maybe for the old stuff, but you know, that's pretty obvious there.
It sounded like you might have touched on my question there, my follow-up question, which is about the balance between Exarch and Eater of Worlds influence. In particular, it seemed like you know, one was significantly better than the other.
Yeah, the patch notes are coming out just after this chat, so people will be able to see what we've changed. And our goal was to make Exarch as valuable as Eater, so hopefully we've managed to achieve that.
Cool, great.
Hopefully they did that by buffing Exarch and not nerfing Eater.
Answer some of my following questions. We're getting Keystones, and you mentioned ambitious plans to keep expanding the endgame until PoE 2. Does this mean that we will see Atlas Masteries and Cluster Jewels for the Atlas tree and so on?
We have not actually had an internal discussion that's brought up masteries and cluster jewels and stuff. Aside from when, you showed me a draft of some of these questions and I asked the team what their thoughts were. That was the first time we actually discussed the concept of masteries and cluster jewels for the Atlas. So the intention is that we come up with things that make sense for it being an Atlas, which could be masteries and cluster jewels. Maybe those are great tools, right? But we'd have to actually work it out based on what the Atlas needs at the time.
I can see masteries. The Cluster Jewels one was like, I kind of added it as a joke. I'm like, oh, that's ridiculous. But then again, I don't know. I feel like it could happen one day, so we'll see. More seriously, though, in what ways are you folks looking to expand PoE's already massive endgame over this period between now and PoE 2?
So you're probably going to see more player agency and more rewards for engaging with difficult content. There's kind of this thing where a Path of Exile player will get to the end game. And then they'll be like, I guess I'm done now. I've done my stuff, got my character finished. And the more stuff we can make it really clear of, actually, if you do this thing, you could get this reward. Like the challenges, for example, or these Uber Pinnacle fights. The more stuff we can dangle in front of you, the more time you will play. And maybe the more time you play, the more stuff you buy. And so this is like a business plan of give people more game. And that means more player agency, more rewards, more content. We have a plan for actual end-game content we're going to roll out.
Refreshingly honest,
and you'll see it in coming expansions. Like our goal is that we never have a live stream where we just say, oh yeah, the end game's fine, we left it how it is. Our goal is basically end game stuff, just accelerate, push, until PoE 2 comes out.
Well, the idea of you guys do a live stream, you're like, didn't do anything.
Yeah. Remember how people liked the no character balance? We also did no content. So here's a league reset, new ladder, 8-second live stream. No, there's going to be a lot of stuff. And to be honest, we're really excited that we get to work on the endgame every league. Because previously we kind of had this policy of just touch it once a year and touch it in a big way. And it kind of did feel stale. And if you were to ask me what one of our biggest mistakes was we always come out with leagues that at least I find compelling. And, they're generally pretty good. But when we leave the endgame alone, people get to the endgame, they've played the league, and then it's kind of just on faith that they keep playing, having some fun, but there isn't new stuff to do necessarily. So that's why we want to make sure there is new stuff to do when you get to the end for each of your characters all the time going forward.
I think it's been a huge reason for PoE's success. I'm excited to see a more consistent role of endgame changes. Especially, I think it gives the fact that PoE 2 is coming, we have space because we know, hey, the early game experience is changing in a big way soon, so we can't just focus on the end game. Feels kind of nice. We have a question from a lot of people in chat, kind of translated, which you kind of touched on a little bit, but with changes to the Atlas trees and, for example, the monsters gain more life one, that would give builds like Detonate Dead a big buff. So has this been taken into consideration at all?
That's a good point. That specific point wasn't discussed directly, but we do understand.
Yeah,
that,
you didn't
yes,
think of that, huh?
Changed, and that will change what builds you want to play, but they will work the way you expect, which is the key thing, right? We're not saying the right build for 317 is the right build for 318. The goal is that people have to think and pick their build. There's new challenges that are very hard. There's new pinnacle bosses that are very hard. The high Sentinel content where you can juice up these map bosses to be very hard is also very hard. Your 317 builds may not be the right ones. But if you take a 317 build guide, it will function. There is no hidden nerf that prevents it from doing so. And there may be incidental stuff that goes much further than just the fact that monsters can get more life if you spec a keystone and that makes your detonate deads better. It does scale DD, right? Yeah, okay, just checking that. But The builds from last time will work is the important part. We are not saying that the best build from last time is the best build from this time. So you must think before picking your build, but you can trust the build guides you read. And if there's something that's exciting,
yeah,
then play
that note is just a straight buff to detonate dead builds.
Interesting, like refreshing kind of. I don't know. It feels refreshing this time around.
We'll break stuff in the future. Like we want a new meta in the future. We are not saying the builds stay this way forever. Yeah. However, this time they do, and maybe, if people like that, we might do it again in the future sometime if it makes sense.
Yeah, it's weird because I don't know, like I feel like I should be always hungering for the new changes to be excited about, but I don't know, I feel like relieved a little bit that there's not like a bunch of balance changes this time. So maybe it's like an every now and then thing. It does seem right, but I guess we'll see how it feels after actually playing League. So those keystones that change the health and life, do they affect pinnacle bosses or just maps?
They affect monsters in your maps, I believe. How does this technically work?
Yeah, so that terminology typically just refers to the maps on the Atlas and Pinnacle bosses. Yeah.
Right. So yeah, in case Andrew wasn't loud, the maps on your Atlas are the ones affected by your Atlas tree when it's worded like that, and the Pinnacle bosses are typically not maps on the Atlas.
So the things that do affect Pinnacle bosses are probably referred to them specifically.
Yeah, there is like one keystone per Uber fight, which is pretty clear that it makes it really hard. Oh, and here's the thing, by the way, random rant. What we learned from the Maelstrom of Chaos back in closed beta was that you have to have a cost for accessing in-game content. The reason why we made the map system where it consumes the map is so that there's a cost to trying. If you want to try a red tier map, it's going to cost you a lot, right? A whole red tier map. And the reason for this is because we found that players would play the hardest content of the game and then die and then be very angry and complain and quit. So typically, if you have high content, you have to gate it behind it being hard to get to, like the Simulacrum or blah, blah, blah. Problem is, here, the absolute hardest content is gated behind clicking a keystone. So there are people who are going to play the Uber fights who probably can't complete them. So it's not the case that you should allocate the keystone in order to have a normal Path of Exile experience. This is going to kill you, right? Like, you have to be really good at the normal Uber fight, the normal Pinnacle fights before it's worth allocating that keystone. So just get your regrets ready for unallocating that after you've seen how hard it is.
Put like one of those warning labels on it you have to tear off first.
Oh, the hardcore kill attempts are going to be great.
Warning, this will probably kill you.
Yeah, we've had long, non-constructive arguments internally about whether this is technically Path of Exile's hardest content, where the answer is, of course it is, look at how hard it is, or I've come up with a contrived example of some other stuff. But as an example, the Feared, for example, where it's got lots of bosses, it's probably on par with that, or a bit above, or a bit below, depending on the individual fight. But that's kind of the scale here. You don't just walk into that fight expecting it to be straightforward. And so these are certainly the hardest, like, solo boss fights, with just, like, one or two bosses in them.
Speaking of hard content, are the monsters from the new influence type seeing any changes? In particular, springing to my mind is the tentacle miscreations that appear, about 80 of them at the same time, and start shooting me all at the same time with tracking, heat-seeking bullets.
So we nerfed the burning ground
I would like those
from
to
one
change.
of the Etro World's alter mods that affects influence monsters. It was like a burning ground on death that's scale based on attack damage, and certain monsters had really high attack damage, so they had off-the-charts burning ground. That's been fixed. And we'll keep the tentacle miscreations as they are for you, Ziggy.
Another Ziggy under the bus moment. Great, thanks. Okay. Oh no! I've been giving the 10-minute warnings. Alright, let's go. So, Arch Nemesis modifiers are replacing old Nemesis and Bloodline modifiers. It had some really punitive and scary mechanics, like disabling Leech and combos that led to truly unkillable nightmares. I made a monster where I invited, like, the most OP people we could find into the map, and they couldn't kill it. However, we had control over making these monsters every time, but now it's random. And I know a lot of the time it's going to be, like, 2 or 3 mods, not 4 a lot of the time, but still, I need reassurance, Chris. I'm very scared.
So there's a lot of balance changes.
This is
to the
possibly
Arch
going to be a
Nemesis
nightmare.
mods, and most of them are taking things that make sense in the context of Arch Nemesis and that don't make sense in the core game and fixing it. So for example, in Arch Nemesis, you're always fighting just one monster, and it's one that you can control what's on it, so you can pick. But in the core game, it could be several monsters with a mod near you. Like maybe you've got a magic pack, or maybe you've just hit multiple rares near each other. And so an example is the mods that make all of the damage freeze or stun. And of course, that's a problem if there's just monsters all over the place that are doing like entirely freeze or entirely stuns on you. And so that stuff is being fixed. And like the Ice Prison mod disabled travel skills, whereas now it doesn't, because you kind of can't control when you run into it. So all of the stuff that required a little bit of foreshadowing is a bit less punitive now. We've also globally nerfed Grasping Vines, like you know, not related to Arch Nemesis in particular, but certainly affects it. The other thing is that in Arch Nemesis, each mod had a multiplicative life bonus, and so there were some very, very, very high life rares. But when we've integrated it into the core game, they don't have such a bonus. Like we've kept the monster magic and rare life about the same as it was before, and it doesn't come from their mods. But to be clear, that doesn't mean that the rare monsters are easy. They were too easy before, we feel. They didn't, like, the basic idea is you play Path of Exile and you can kind of zone out and kill the monsters and it's fun and you have your, you know, your power trip and everything's good. And then you run into, occasionally, a certain combination of rare mods that causes your character to have to pause and maybe do a different strategy. And that's how it's meant to be, that generally rare monsters are fine for you to kill, and sometimes they're hard. And people can try to argue they don't want a game where sometimes it gets hard, but the game we're making is one where sometimes it's hard, and that's done through rare monster mods, plus things like outposts and stuff that we can custom design. You could use the Diablo 2 example of like multiple shot lightning enchanted monsters, right? You can kill most of the rares and then you run into one of those and you have to be very careful, at least back in the good old days. So we do have combinations here that are hard, and we feel that something like turning off leech for a specific monster is not the end of the world. There are other ways of having to recover life, and if this is a game where you cannot be permanently leeching and occasionally you need another way of getting life, we don't feel that that is too bad. But we will make sure that things that are completely out of control are fixed, and there is a long list of changes. Actually, to clarify, there isn't a long list of changes. There's a lot of changes, but the patch notes basically just said we changed a bunch of stuff. It was getting completely out of hand to document it all, and it doesn't really matter because it doesn't affect your builds a lot, so we only covered important points, but the nitpicky detail I don't think is there in the patch notes for these changes.
Okay.
Well, it should have been.
We're going to speed through some more questions here.
You've got an entire section of the patch notes that don't exist this time.
No, but we may have made some awakened exceptional support gems and hidden them away behind really hard bosses that no one's actually going to be able to kill and has a very rare chance of dropping them.
I love it. Awakened exceptional support gems. It's perfect.
Yeah. Man, what is awakened in power and enhanced going to turn into?
Support gem names we had. Hopefully we get back to those. Those halcyon days of 18-word long support gem names. Okie dokie. Do we have any... Oh, yes. This was the question about hard mode. We're circling back to that now. Do we have any update on the previously teased hard mode?
So, hard mode is still being worked on, but it is a second priority. And what that means is, if a league is looking great and everything is fine and we're going to release it on schedule at high quality and everything's perfect, we work on hard mode. And if it is not going to be fine and we need to work on the league, we will of course 100% do that. So in no way are we letting hard mode stuff sacrifice any actual work from the core game. And this has meant that in some 3-month periods we just haven't touched it. And it's also tricky because it requires time from a lot of senior people, right? Like, Mark, for example, who is knee-deep in, like, complicated Path of Exile 2 stuff right now, has to be dragged out of that to work on hard mode for bits and pieces that he needs to work on. It's tricky to find time. So we do have a schedule, and tentatively speaking, I would like to see it released by the end of the year. We want to make sure we do it right, of course, but that's what we're looking for. And because it's announced, we can be open with this, right? Like, it's not a secret. There's not going to be a big, like, there won't be a live stream where we say, surprise, hard mode's ready. It'll be the case of, remember that thing you've been testing for a while? Well, that's getting formally released with some prizes for a competition or whatever. So we will be very open about it.
Does that mean there might be some tests?
That'll be interesting to watch. Probably not so much to play for me.
Not quite soon. Like, I'm thinking maybe a test in 3 months, maybe release in 6, right? But I'm usually wrong, so double or triple or half those numbers, we'll see.
All right. I'd like to discuss visual clarity in Path of Exile if we can for a little bit. So over the years, Path of Exile has become quite good looking, especially compared to some of those earlier screenshots and videos that are still floating around.
Thank you.
It especially feels that way when you're like leveling in early end game progression. During these times, like the monsters, the player, and the ability all work really well together to both communicate like the gameplay that the game has, but also the game world and the setting and the feeling and all that sort of stuff. However, when Path of Exile scales up, which it does, it scales up a lot these days, things rather quickly devolve into like a colorful blur where both like gameplay understanding is lost and also aesthetics are lost. What are your thoughts in general on visual clarity in Path of Exile currently, and is there any plans on how you might approach this in the future?
So we're not going to argue that the visual clarity is in a good place there, right? Like, it's really a matter of what we're doing about it, right? And the most extreme thing we could do would be to pause all other development and just sit there improving visual clarity for ages on every existing thing. And we actually do kind of have the ability to do that in the form of Path of Exile 2, because pretty much everything's getting redone. And so because they've learned all the lessons from 15 years of work on Path of Exile 1, they can make sure to design stuff in a way where when it scales up, it doesn't lose visual clarity when stacked with other stuff. And so the PoE 2 team, who are working on the version we're all going to eventually be playing in a few years, they know this and are working for it. So the question is, what are we doing for PoE 1?
Still a few
And
years out?
Any
Fair
new
enough.
stuff we make involving effects, we try very hard to make sure it has visual clarity. I hope you will find that when you're playing Sentinel, that the Sentinel effects are both relatively subtle but clear as to what is tagged and what rewards they're giving, and they stack with other things appropriately. Let us know if you feel that needs work. We make sure that new stuff that we make works well from a visual clarity point of view. And we do invest occasionally a bit of work in making sure that certain other old effects that are terrible from a visual clarity point of view are improved. But to be honest, a lot of the old PoE 1 graphics get mostly thrown away when PoE 2 comes out and replaces a lot of stuff. So, and by that I mean skills and so on. Like the campaign, yes, that will exist, but the campaign doesn't have visual clarity problems. And we will be playing with Path of Exile 2 skills on our Path of Exile 1 characters in the future.
Yeah, I think that's probably the problem. Like a lot of the new
I
stuff
guess we'll
has
wait
been
and
really
see.
good, but it kind of gets lost in the background of all the old stuff that really overwhelms it because it's. To put it simply, glad to hear that it's something you guys are considering pretty strongly. Then moving forwards, look forward to seeing more progress in that. A lot of people have also been asking in chat about Loot 2.0 as well. I know we've had like little testers or little tastes of some of that change. Lessening. Where are we at in terms of like Loot 2.0?
There's a lot of axes here, right? So the first thing is hard mode is going to be good for people that really want no clutter. Like if they really just want it so that items are special when they find each one, they go play that. It's kind of perfect. The second thing is we have been doing things like reducing the number of times you find currency item and increasing the stack sizes, and basically working towards decluttering. We also had some experimentative changes related to decluttering, which were deployed months ago that no one has noticed yet, which is good. That means that it hasn't had an effect on the actual economy, and it hasn't had an effect on, item drops to the point where people will notice.
What are
and
these
will gradually
changes? Are you
continue
going to
to
tell
tweak
us?
That is mostly in the form of culling items that would never be picked up. And so, the better we get at that, the better it is. I just don't want players to feel that we're culling items that are valuable to them because we're really trying very hard not to. And the basic goal is, I know we're going over time, but at the end of the day, there are two ways to declutter, right? Way number one is to leave the spam of rares and uniques that people are used to, right? This really rewarding thing where there's quite a lot of item dilution. Leave that in place because people like it, and to reduce clutter of other things, in which case at the end of the day, it's a big pile of yellow items on the ground. And I think we'd be lynched if we did a solution other than that, or to actually solve itemization issues with the game and say, look, rares should be special, blah, blah, blah. And that's what hard mode's for, right? We get it. A lot of people like the reward spam. And so because of hard mode, there will be a way where rewards are very, very, very precious, and they can play there if they want, in my opinion, superior experience. But baseline PoE will probably still not have substantial drop nerfs, at least during PoE 1. And then, of course, with PoE 2, we can look at what makes sense, knowing what players like, but also knowing how that game works.
Awesome. Well, I've been giving the time warning quite aggressively, but just kidding. Thank you very much, Chris, for spending some time with us and answering some questions today. I'd appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thanks
for hosting.
suggesting stuff. It's been a pleasure. We'll see you. We'll see you guys next time.
All right.
Very much.
At your release.
Is there anything left in the stream? I guess not. All right, let's go check out let's check out the packs. Bring back Rivers in the Desert. Sentinel supporter packs. Let's shut off Rivers in the Desert because we're going to look at the videos. Reaper Series supporter pack.
Soul Harvester's Cloak. Its power is based on the number of enemies your character has killed. With the Belt of the Hive Queen, flasks you use cause blood-sucking insects to appear on you. The Savage Reaper pack contains Medidrone, will follow you around.
Okay, so the hideouts are going to be at the $60 packs.
Ghostlit Graveyard is a hideout where you can control the color of its torches. It also has 6 exclusive hideout decorations. The Underworld portal opens a gateway to hell. Its effect upgrades in Part 2 and again in maps, where it also indicates what tier of map you're playing.
That is a cool-ass portal. I want that. But I'm probably going to pick the time of day hideout.
The Sanguine Reaper pack has the Ring of the Exorcist. Any spells you cast will exorcise the ghosts of your enemies if you crit.
Man, the 90-point pack is basically just for bragging rights.
As you fight, it culls any rare or unique.
The Reaper is cool, but the hideout and the portal are the real stars of the show in the Reaper packs.
These exclusive packs will be available until the end of the Sentinel League. Thanks for your support.
Alright, so that's the Reaper packs. The Arcanist series.
The Arcanist pack includes the Cloak of Elements, which indicates the strength of your fire, cold, and lightning resistances. It also
That's a cool dynamic cloak.
While wearing it, your level up effect looks like this.
Badass. I love it.
This pack contains Chevron's Tome. With this equipped, identifying items will cause exploding...
Oh, the map device is in the $60 pack. Oh, yes.
In the Timekeeper's hideout, you can use the Chrono...
There's so much I want in the Arcanist pack.
Dawn to noon to dusk to night. It also has 2 exclusive hideout decorations. The Mage Blue map device blossoms with greater intensity as you open higher tier maps.
That's so cool. That's so cool. That's worth the 60 all by itself. Well, maybe not that much, but still.
This pack contains the soul stunning effect. When added to your weapon, any attacks that stun will cause your enemies to have an out-of-body experience. Drinking from the searing Quicksilver flask causes an explosion that sets your character on fire.
Yeah, I'm not going for the $90 pack for Arcanist. But I'm going to have to save up $60 to get the $60 Arcanist pack.
Until the end of the Sentinel League. Thanks for your support.
There's Nemesis support packs. All right, let's look for these patch notes. Here we go. Oh, this is a short one. All right, that just describes how Sentinels work. So, pieces of the Ophidian armor set are received when you complete 6, 12, 16, and 20 challenges. 24 challenges, you'll receive the Ophidian wings. Pieces of the Ophidian Lord are 28, 31, 34, 36. Completing 38 will award you with the Ophidian Lord wings. Okay. Power core, transforming power core, amplifying power core, augmenting power core. Weaponry combinators, armor and jewelry recombinators, 20 new Atlas Keystones. Awaken support. Oh yeah, let's look at /Sentinel and see what new stuff we have here. There's the power. Okay, extra empowerment. It empowers extra enemies. Duration. Chance for empowered enemies to have a currency reward, which turns up into multi% chance at higher tiers, it seems. Chance for empowered enemies to have a unique reward. Reconfigure your Sentinels. Assemble and experiment. Increased empowerment. Chance for empowered enemies to have a currency reward, etc. Okay, Power Core is just regular. Transforming Power Core is higher chance of a special base type. Amplifying is higher chance of upgrading the tier of mods. Augmenting is higher chance of new random mods. Discover unique Sentinels. There's the Hollow-Eyed Skull, which is the Headhunter one. There's the Petrify one. There's the one that empowers a specific boss. That's cool. Gain Alchemist's Genius when you use a flask. Interesting. Curse on hit. Mage Bane. I can't remember what Mage Bane is. This is your map deal. More, take less. There's the pack size. There's the randomness. Uber Pinnacle bosses. Awakened in Power is level 4 is +3 to level of active skill gems. Awakened in Light and Support is 88%. Oh, it levels up normally to 4 and can be corrupted to 5. Ooh, that's cool. That's cool. That makes sense. I wonder what 9 lives is going to be. And we've seen all those. Windows will immortalize themselves by designing an in-game unique or div card. Or div card, huh. Consistent character balance. No changes. Impactful monster modifiers with Arch Nemesis. Game controller. Tinker with quality of life features. Complete harder challenges. Explore Kirok's Vault. It's only showing the current one. And buy supporter packs. All right. Back to the patch notes. 12 new divination cards. We've already seen those. New variations of 4 and 6 new ones. Added an audio cue for attempting to drink a flask that does not have enough charges. Interesting. That will get very annoying, I'm sure. Existing magic and rare modifiers. Rare monsters will be found with 2 Arch Nemesis modifiers by default. From Act 6 onwards, there's a chance to find with 3. And in maps, a chance for finding monsters with 4 modifiers. Magic monsters will be found with 1 Arch Nemesis modifier by default. The life, experience, increased item quantity, and rarity of magic and rare monsters are no longer primarily determined by the monster's rarity. These are now primarily determined by the type of modifiers on the monster itself. Hopefully that's more buffs than nerfs. Monster with more or rarer modifiers will have more life, increased item quantity and rarity, and grant more experience. Arch Nemesis modifiers are able to be gained by characters through sources such as Headhunter and Inspired Learning, though you are only able to have 1 instance of each modifier at any given time. Well, that'll lower a lot of the utility of Headhunter. Headhunter's going to be like a 30 Exalt unique in Sentinel League. Damn. That nerfs the hell out of Headhunter. I mean, you could only have 1 copy of each Nemesis mod already, but you could get stuff like multiple instances of Quick, I think. Bloodlines and Nemesis have been removed. Some of their mods have been incorporated into the monster modifier. Snowbolt and Inferno Bolt Nemesis modifiers have been incorporated into Frost Strider and Flame Strider. Storm Herald and Final Gas Nemesis modifiers can be found as Arch Nemesis modifiers and rare monsters. Unit of Souls, Voidspawn of Abaxoth, Spirit Walkers, and Heralds of the Obelisk bloodline monsters have been incorporated into the Arch Nemesis modifier system and can be found on magic monsters. Fair enough. Alright, we've seen Singular Focus. We've seen these Keystones. The remaining 7 new Atlas Keystone passives will be revealed in upcoming news posts. Alright, here comes the meat of it. The Atlas passive tree changes. The Conquered Conqueror's Atlas passive skill no longer grants Cirrus has 10% chance to drop an Awakened Support Gem. It now grants Conquerors have 30% increased chance to drop a Conqueror's Exalted Orb. And map bosses have 30% increased chance to drop a Conqueror map. They've moved the Awakened... it'll tell us exactly what. The Eater of Worlds full power is unleashed. Eater of Worlds has a 25% chance to drop an additional exceptional Ichor. Exarch. Eldritch Currency items dropped by the Searing Exarch have 50% chance to be duplicated. The Maven drops an Elevated Sextant. Venarius drops 3 additional rare items with 3 less common synthesized implicit modifiers. That's cool. Let's bring the music back. Cirrus has 20% chance to drop an Awakened Support Gem. Yeah, so they just moved the Awakened Gem to Awaken Cirrus. Uber Cirrus. Alright. Guardian's Aid is now a keystone called Inevitable Ambush, and no longer grants map bosses have 1% chance to drop a Shaper Guardian map tier 14+. Gaze into the Abyss no longer grants Elder Guardian map chance, has been moved to the bottom of the Shaper and Elder cluster on the Atlas passive tree. Remnants, hang on. Let me pull up paths so I can compare. After it patches 700 megs. Alright, Atlas passive tree. Alright. Guardian's Aid. Okay, it still gives the joined by an ally chance. Gaze into the Abyss has the Watcher's Eye and Shaper items chance. I guess they just want people to have a harder time sustaining the Guardian maps. Remnants of the Past now grants map bosses a 3% chance to drop an Elder Guardian map. Oh, they moved it to Remnants of the Past. Oh, okay. Well, they didn't nerf it then. Cool. Sources of chance for an additional connected map to drop from map bosses on the Atlas passive tree have all been changed to chance for 1 monster in each of your maps to drop an additional connected map, forcing you to clear the map, which is a good change, I think. Added a new Atlas notable passive skill, Black Thumb, which grants your maps have no chance to contain the Sacred Grove. Okay, Dimensional Barrier, no chance to contain breaches. Ethics Review. The anti-metamorph one is called Ethics Review. Alright, later, Blink. Thanks for hanging out. Fungal Remission is the anti-blight one. Loved by the Sun is the anti-abyss one. Ominous Silence is the anti-delirium one. Sealed Domain is the anti-legion one. Secular Focus is the anti-ritual one. Straight and Narrow is anti-heist. People are going to take that a lot. I might take that. I don't do much heist lately. I might take Straight and Narrow to buff other content chance. I'll probably take Anti-Abyss as well. Yeah, I'm going to take Anti-Abyss and probably Anti-Heist. The Light of Dawn no longer grants Eldritch Embers a 10% chance to be duplicated for each Searing Exarch altar used in the area, or players take 10% increased damage for each Searing Exarch altar used in the area. It now grants 50% chance to spawn a Searing Exarch altar when the influence of the Searing Exarch first appears in your map. Previously, 20% chance. Damn, nice. Small Atlas passive skills that granted influence monster packs in areas of increased pack size are now found as either monster packs influenced by the Eater of Worlds in your maps of increased pack size, or, okay, so they're getting rid of pack size for non-Eldritch bosses. So it doesn't affect like Shaper or Elder or packs or Conqueror packs. The Shadow of Hunger now grants 30% increased chance to find Eater of World altars in your map, previously 50%. So that's a nerf, but that was probably deserved. Updated various Atlas passive skill and sextant modifier descriptions to clarify they specifically apply to your maps. Added 7 new Uber versions of Pinnacle boss fights, accessible through Atlas Keystone passives. Increase the damage of the Eater of Worlds skills and melee attacks. Their Doom Laser skill now applies an inescapable Doom debuff, which causes characters to take increased damage. Increase the damage dealt by the Searing Exarch's Flame Wall skill and their melee attack. Okay, that's deserved. The Exarch just does no damage. Searing Exarch's rolling meteors are now considered larger for the purposes of collision detection against enemies. That means you exile. That's a little rough, as it was already chaotic. Increase the damage of the Black Star's Fire Beam skill. The Annihilating Light and Crushing Darkness debuffs now cause affected players to take more or less fire or cold damage from hits only. Previously, all fire and cold damage. I need to learn the mechanics of that fight. Increase the damage of the Infinite Hunger's melee attacks. Grotesque monsters found in the Seething Chime have had their damage reduced. Good. I still don't know exactly how you're supposed to escape the Seething Chime. I've seen conflicting things, and I've tried all of them, and none of them have worked. A chance for the Eater of Worlds of the Searing Exarch to drop the Forbidden Flesh and Forbidden Flame unique items now scales with map item quantity. Hell yes, that is cool. That is a good change. Black Star is just Ikaruga. I don't know what Ikaruga is. Eldritch Archers have been rebalanced. Their downsides now feel more impactful, and they now provide a wider diversity of rewards. The Eldritch Altar option that causes scarabs dropped by slain enemies have a chance to be duplicated has been replaced with a new option that causes divination cards dropped by slain enemies to have a chance to be duplicated. Okay, so they didn't get rid of the scarab chance. They got rid of the useless scarab duplication chance. The Eldritch Altar option that causes Eldritch minions to drop Burning Ground on death no longer scales off of the main hand attack damage of the monster, as this could result in highly variable amounts of damage over time dealt by the ground effect. The change has been applied to all cases of this in the game, notably Burning Ground on death from the... Okay, path just crashed. Alright. It's a shmup based around flipping your color mode to deal with alternating white and black attacks. Huh. This change is applied to all cases of this in the game, notably Burning Ground on death from Flame Hellions and Caustic Clouds on death from certain zombies. Okay, that's cool. Maven's Invitation, the Atlas Invitation, now drops more commonly for maps witnessed by the Maven and less commonly for maps not witnessed by the Maven. Kirak now offers the invitation for a moderate price of 8 Chaos Orbs and 1 Orb of Chance in his shop if you have previously completed this encounter. The Maven releases all bosses at once modifier can no longer roll on Maven's invitations. I wonder why that is. Shaper or Elder influence can now be applied to maps alongside Eater of Worlds or Searing Exarch influence and Conqueror influence. Hell fucking yes. That's going to be so chaotic. I love it. Shaper, Elder, or Conqueror influence and influence items will now be first encountered in level 81 areas. Huh. Atlas and map changes. Doriani's Machinarium and the Victar Square have been removed from the Atlas of Worlds as they cannot be found as natural map drops. As a result, the total number of maps in the Atlas is now 115, which means you only get 130 Atlas points. Atlas passive skill points from completing Doriani's Machinarium and the Victar Square have been moved to rewards for defeating the Infinite Hunger and the Black Star. Cool, so we do still get 132. Doriani's Machinarium can no longer be offered as a white or yellow tier map mission when rerolling Kirok's missions with a comprehensive scouting report. The chance for map areas to contain a mirror of delirium no longer increases by a small amount for each other League, Atlas, or master mechanic that appears in that area. Instead, map areas now have an 8% chance to contain a mirror of delirium, with campaign areas from the Torch Courts onwards having a slightly higher chance. Okay, fair enough. That simplifies it somewhat. Operative strongboxes can no longer drop polished scarabs in white maps or gilded and winged scarabs in white or yellow maps, but they can still in red maps. Cool. Shaper Guardian and Vol Temple maps are now affected by sextant modifiers and socketed void stones. Oh, hell yes. That's excellent. Scouting reports can now be found in Shaper Guardian and Vol Temple maps. Also excellent. Crafted Harbinger map modifiers no longer state that areas can contain mysterious Harbingers, and the Infused Harbinger map modifier now causes areas to contain 5 additional Harbingers, previously 4. Nice! Kirok no longer offers a mission to kill an invasion boss, and no longer sells maps with implicit modifiers that cause the area to be inhabited by killing additional invasion bosses. Fair enough, nobody cared. The following maps have been added back to the Atlas. Alleyways, Arena, Barrows, Bog, Colonnade, Core, Crystal Ore, Desert, Factory, Foundry, Fungal Hollow, Lava Lake, that's cool, I like Lava Lake, Mud Geyser, Mud Geyser, alright, Park, Pit, Ramparts, Reef, oh, not Reef, I hate Reef, Residence, Sepulcher, Sunken City. Sunken City is the source of a hideout. Were we not able to get the Sunken City hideout during Arch Nemesis League? Terrace, Tropical Island. Tropical Island's back. Cool. Villa and Wharf. Following maps have been removed from the Atlas. Ancient City. Arachnid Nest. Belfry's gone. Because they brought back Lava Lake. Channel. Coliseum. Conservatory. Oh, no channel. That sucks. Coves. They got rid of Coves. Come on. Defiled Cathedral. Dig is the source of a hideout, so hopefully they give us another way to get that hideout. Estuary's gone. Oh, I like Estuary. Flooded Mine, Forbidden Woods, Forking River, Ghetto, Graveyard, Haunted Mansion, Iceberg, Malformation, Phantasmagoria, Shipyard, Shrine. I hate Shipyard, so I'm fine with that. Shrine, Silo, Stagnation, and Vault. They got rid of Silo? Why'd they get rid of Silo? And Vault. Lame. Map tiers and locations have been shuffled, though the pin locations for maps has not changed. Most maps are now initially found in a different tier. The following maps can now be found as blighted maps. Acid Caverns, Bone Crypt, Caldera, Cells, Cursed Crypt, Dungeon. Dungeon's going to have a lot of choke points. I like that. Gardens, Glacier, Laboratory, Lair, Lookout, Mausoleum, Museum, Necropolis, Overgrown Shrine, Tower. Tower will have some choke points too. Cool. Toxic Sewer, Underground River, and Waste Pool. Some of the map bosses you were required to defeat to upgrade your Pantheon have changed as a result of these Atlas changes. That's fine. Crafting recipes that were previously unlocked in maps that have been removed are now found within other maps currently on the Atlas. Vol vessels found in the Vol Temple map no longer have bonus chance to drop Vol Temple maps. They had a chance to drop Vol Temple maps? Huh. Some divination cards have found new homes as a result of these Atlas changes. Price of Protection, Azarin's Reward, Humility can now drop in Frozen Cabins. The Offspring, Invidious Token. Alright. Expedition changes. Expedition remnants that provide a chance for runic monsters and excavated chests to drop or contain an additional influence item now have a chance of 20%, previously 35%. as they provided a higher number of influence items relative to other sources. Fair enough. The following unique items will now be found with both Shaper and Elder influence. Disintegrator, Indigon, Void Fletcher, Void Forge, Eternity Shroud, and Replica, Eternity Shroud. These changes do not apply to existing versions of these unique items. Cool, that's more options for builds. Astromancer and the Endless Darkness Divination Cards, both have... Okay, backgrounds. The Price of Protection Divination card now awards a Corrupted Elder Guardian occupied map. Nice. Monochrome can once again be attained. Now awards 2 Elevated Sextants. Sick. The Side Quest Divination card now awards 20 Scouting Reports. Hot damn. Oh, the Hook, which instead of giving Winged Scarabs like people wanted it to, now awards a Corrupted 23% alt quality level 21 gem, which is still cool, but hey, I would have preferred a stack of Winged Scarabs. Samboni's Wisdom can once again be obtained and now awards a 30% quality unique armor. That gave... The hell did that give? That gave a fragment before. Why is it now a 30% quality unique armor? Hopefully not corrupted. Monster balance changes. Grasping Vines applied by the Bramble Valley map boss no longer take longer to break than other sources of grasping vines and no longer disable movement skills. Reduce the base movement speed reduction from almost all sources of the Grasping Vines debuff. Nice. Kurok lead mods available during 318. Fortune favors the brave. Okay. Breach for 2 Chaos Orbs. Anarchy for 2 Chaos Orbs. Essence for 3 Chaos Orbs. Not that we need it with the automatic Essence node on the Atlas tree. Domination for 4 Chaos Orbs. Well, Essence gives 3 additional Essences. That's pretty cool. Metamorph for 5 Chaos Orbs. Harvest on the map device? Holy shit. Harvest on the map device for 12 Chaos Orbs. Delirium for 16. Holy shit. There's some Chaos Sinks for you. Rename the influence section of the currency stash tab to exotic. Cool. More user interface changes and quality of life improvements will be revealed in upcoming news posts. Cool. Controller support changes. Who cares? Bug fixes. That's nice. Alright, well. This has been exciting. League is cool. Uber bosses, but... I'll have to see how I feel about the League. Like, it's cool, but it's not what I was hoping for. I wanted a companion character that fought alongside you. I think everyone wants those at some point, but Uber Bosses is cool. The upgraded Atlas tree is cool. This is basically an all-upside League. There's almost nothing that's been nerfed or changed poorly. This is awesome. The game is in a great state and they're leaving it that way? Seriously? That's mind-blowing from them. But yeah. That's going to be it for the stream for today. I may stream some Persona 4 Golden. But I'm feeling myself get stopped up again, so I may not. But yeah, that'll be it for today. For this at least. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys next time.